Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have all trustees present except for Trustee Guerrero Getch, who is supposed to be here shortly. Karina, has the agenda been posted according to the open meeting law? Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Bullock, would you lead us? Thank you. Okay, public comment. Members of the public who speak are asked to state their name for the record and will be limited to a uniform number of minutes. Tonight, that is 3 minutes. Board members may respond briefly to public comments, but cannot deliberate on matters that are not listed on the agenda. For matters on the agenda, the board will conduct public comments after discussion of each agenda action item, but before the board takes any action. A summary of public comments will be noted in the minutes. Are there any public comments tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to review and adoption of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as posted.
Okay, I have a motion from Trustee McFadden, a second from Trustee Bullock. Is there any public comment on the posting of the agenda? And then I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It is unanimous. Superintendent update. Human Resources update. A written report was provided. Any questions on the human resource? Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question regarding the improvements of the vacancy rates, and if we're retaining staff or if we're just having more applicants. What do you think is leading to the improvements?
Or can you please ask the question again, Joe?
Yeah. Are we retaining staff or are we having more outside applicants? That what's in?
So we've recruited 20 new hires this year, and we also had about 10 long-term subs become licensed over the summer throughout the year as well. So we still have some turnover that we need to work on, retention, but we had a number of applicants this year that we were able to just hire on. Most of them, the referrals were mostly through the website and social media. We had quite a few word of mouth as well, but for the most part, the recruitment events I went to, we didn't capture any of those, unfortunately. But our recruiting efforts through social media, through just posting positions, our new hire incentives online have shown to be effective. We get a lot of applicants and clicks onto our website through those advertisements.
Hopefully the interest in that applications are continuing to improve in the future.
And I can add a couple of numbers to that too, because we were talking about it earlier. On our hires, so last year, the previous school year, we had hired 8 special education teachers. Of those 8, 5 are returning, 3 are not. And for regular ed teachers, we had hired 20, and 15 of those are returning and 5 are not. So for both groups, it's a little higher than 25% turnover on the average. We lost a little over 25% of the new teachers that we hired last year, but the majority of them stayed. And one thing I think that also goes with that, when we're asking the numbers, is that last year, so our staff, our licensed staff, they did decrease by 8. That's 8 from last year to this year on the total number of licensed positions that we have that we're filling. Of that, last year we had 12 critical needs and 18 long-term subs. This year we have 9 critical needs and 6 long-term subs. So that means we reduced our if we want to call it temporary positions, because they're there, but we reduced that by 50% over last year on total number of temporary positions. A lot of that was due to some of the new hires, but we had, as Kevin mentioned, we had 10 of our people that we've been working with that were, several were classified as staff that were doing long-term subs. Or others in various stages that got to a point where they're considered licensed. and we have 3 more currently that are in various stages. 2 of them could really soon be licensed and be considered licensed. So what we've been doing, and you'll have a presentation tonight on new teacher stuff that we're doing, that's been helping. We've been able to help support them, and they've done a lot of work to get to that point so that they're licensed now in that category. So that's helping. One thing is not in the report that we are trying to factor into, this is all good. We're also aware that in the next 3 years, we have a lot of teachers that will reach retirement status as far as number of years employed and in PERS. And so we're going to continue actively recruiting. Cameron has several things that he's talked about, ideas that we mentioned up, start very early on involving some different approaches, because the traditional recruitment didn't work for us this year. Like I said, most of our things, like you were saying, were off of website, word of mouth, or social media. The recruitment fairs we went to, none of them panned out. So we've also been learning from what we've seen others doing, and so we've got some creative ideas to involve our students in things and trying to spread the word around through social media that we're looking for people and why this is a great place to work. So that'll be starting, I think he's going to start this stuff probably within the next month or 2 to get it ready, so that by the time we're looking for hiring for next year, we have a lot already out there. That seems to be our best approach. So we're conscious of that and trying to make plans for that and prepare for that. But I really want to say that they've been getting people on board and things really, really fast. We've been able to work out, and we have, fortunately, some of the schools have some recent hires within the last few weeks that have helped as well on that. So I think there's even 1 or 2 that aren't in board book tonight that happened to recently. So we're good work to the principals and everyone for recruiting, and to Cameron and the HR office, because they worked really hard to get us to this point. And so that is good. And like I said, our rates are looking much better for what's filled. But we did have a decrease in positions by the 8 positions as far as license goes, certified. So that helped as far as the rate. But really overall, we made we made more ground up than we have for several years anyways, as far as filling those positions back.
Do we know if our signing bonus is actually working?
We're looking at that right now, and what we're kind of looking at is, okay, we have in some instances, when we talk to people, and that's been a determining factor on getting them here. There was one recent new hire that the relocation was very valuable. But when we look at the numbers that I just gave back, that we had a 37.5% turnover rate in special education and a 25% turnover rate in regular ed. And remember, in special education, we also put more money into the positions of that higher base that we did last year. I'm going to say it's don't know that it's working to what we did, so we're examining what are some options we might consider different than that. It's helped get people, but those 8 people that left, they don't get their second year. But then we've had to replace them with people that may qualify for their first year bonus, and then there'll be a second year. So it's mixed. Is it working? Sort of, but has it solved the problem? So you'll have recommendations from us moving forward. Maybe we'll be looking at things probably a little bit differently with that, and trying to focus a bit more on the retention. There's several ideas we've talked about, maybe to replace that and do something different.
Any other questions? Yes.
I know that there are some substitutes or classified staff who are working with that program with UNLV to complete their licenses. And I know I'm surprising you with this question, but are you aware of how many are in that and when potentially they will be licensed?
The apprenticeship course or licensure they're working on, or the alternative route to licensure? Since we have 2 doing the apprenticeship, and that's through UNLV for those who haven't obtained their bachelor's degree yet, and so that helps them obtain the bachelor's, and then once that's obtained, they have this apprenticeship license with provisions that they have to meet within 3 years, and then there's 2 currently in that who are working in the district that I'm aware of. And then for ARL program, aware of the 6 long-term subs. I'm aware of 2 who are currently, or 3, who are currently in the works in the ARL program.
So 5-ish potential.
Mm-hmm.
So then that brings the question up, if they're apprenticeship, how are they considered licensed, or are they still classified with?
Those who are in so that's considered licensed. So there's this licensure, and that once they obtain it, we can hire them as a teacher if they have obtained their bachelor's degree from an approved program, which the approved program is UN. So we have one teacher, or one long-term sub, who has that apprenticeship licensure. She just doesn't have her bachelor's degree yet. So once she meets those requirements for the bachelor's degree, then we can hire her on as a licensed teacher. Kind of weird, but that's what that's currently outlined with NDE.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I mean, I know people who can point them in the right direction as far as colleges. Saying.
Yeah, anyone's welcome to come to my office as well, and we can talk over those programs, and I can walk them through.
I will say kudos to Cameron. He helped someone put in for licensure, and no kidding, Cameron helped them, and 2 weeks later their license was back. This was initial licensure. I don't think I've ever seen one that fast, so we've decided that Cameron has to help everybody now, but he helped this person through the process, and 2 weeks later the license was awarded. That was before the fingerprinting went down with the things going on now, but so that things have gotten faster at the state level as well. That's been helpful too, for a lot of these.
Good news, it's not on the board, but quite yet, but we've hired 2 new registered nurses, so 2 school nurses, so good in the last 2 weeks. That's been good.
Thank you. You good? Thank you. Okay, moving on to B. Tracy Lewis, Summer School Administrator, will provide an update on summer school sessions. Written copy provided. Any questions for Tracy Lewis? Yes, go ahead.
I have some questions.
I'm Tracy Lewis. I was summer school administrator this last summer and the year before. I sent you in the PowerPoint. I'm just assuming you reviewed it, so I don't have to go through the whole thing, or I can go through the whole thing, whatever you would.
I think we're better off just asking questions. We've all reviewed it.
Okay. So looking through there, on middle school and high school, there was, when it talks about the recovered courses, I'm just trying to gauge some of the success. So in middle school, there were 75 courses recovered from 42 students, and I'm wondering how many were not recovered?
13 courses were not covered.
And same with high school?
The high school, it's harder to have like a concrete number on that because a lot of kids were adding classes in. We would talk to the counselors and we would add classes in. So it's harder to gauge what wasn't recovered. But we had a lot more kids. We had Lisa Wempner was there this summer too, and she helped us get some kids geared towards the adult ed program, so they were able to recover those courses as well. But I don't have a concrete number on which ones were not.
But with the data you have seen, would you say it is as successful as the middle school data was?
Yeah.
Even though you don't have a concrete number?
Yes.
Okay. And then looking through on page 3 and 4, where it's talking about 4th, 5th attendance, and it breaks up into 4th grade and then 4th, 5th, and I'm just wondering if there's a difference there, or if...
Those are combined. So we had a hard time hiring teachers this year. There were a lot of teachers that didn't want to work the summer program. So the 4th and 5th ESY class, so summer school class, was combined. And that teacher did have a few more kids, so she was given additional instructional assistance to help her with those students. There was an individual fourth grade general ed class and fifth grade general ed class.
Okay. I was wondering if there was different programs, and that's what the data not makes sense. That's all I have.
Anybody else have any questions?
Just have one question about, it says that the iReady math and language arts was used. Am I correct in?
Say that again, the iReady math and
The
what?
iReady math and language arts was used?
Savvis. So the teachers
okay.
were given the information from those final assessments for iReady and the Savvis, to be able to gear their instruction towards the deficit.
No, I can't, of course, didn't highlight it like I should have. So if anyone else has questions and I find it, I'll come back, but.
Anybody else have questions on?
Can I ask one quick question about that? So with them getting the data from iReady and Savvis, was that helpful for them in planning their instruction, knowing what to do with the students? Would you say that was
It was
impactful, or?
They were able to, put groups together, they were able to see, because we only had really 10 days for the K-5, it was only 10 days, 3 weeks, but, so they were able to get the most, instruction and bang for their buck by having that information.
On my slide. So it says that K-5 ESY at Newman Elementary used iReady reading and math. So you used Savvis to pull data, but then you didn't use Savvis during the summer. Why not?
We didn't use the Savvis, it was too hard to get everybody in and get the kids where they needed to be. So they used different, evidence-based practices to do the remediation on those skills, ESY. So not everyone was obviously at grade level because they were all special education students. So they were able to use the data to help figure out what they wanted to work on.
Thank you for the clarification.
The other summer school? Okay, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Go ahead. That one?
Just, a quick question. Can you remind me again the length of time that this runs, that the summer school program is running, from when to when?
It was all of June, so the high school had 4 weeks, and then K through 8 was just 3 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, on your suggestions for next year, requesting more days for the, K through 5 students. So, why did we only do the 3 weeks? Was it due to funding or? Thank you.
And that's something too that we'll be examining and looking at and trying to make a plan for this next year, seeing where we're at, because the past several years we've been able to use some of the rescue funds, art funds, to do summer school and to pay more to staff to try and have more kids go through. But those funds finished, we have to rely upon some of our other funds, and so it's going to be a different stretch.
I would like to add, I'm Catherine Berven-Mueller, Director of Student Services. I would like to give accolades to the maintenance people. They really helped us a lot. We set up very quickly. We didn't have a lot of time. Also, Amber Scholes and the food people, they set up, we didn't have any hiccups. And then the transportation, Natasha personally transported 2 students that were unable to take the bus, and she brought them into the school. As far as I know, we didn't have any stoppage or any issues during the summer school. So, and all the custodial staff was just amazing. So just letting you know, very proud of the whole team that worked, and it made it very smooth.
Thank you. More questions?
Sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
So it's easy, it's easier to see with middle school and high school, their goals are met and the progress is being made. But with the K-5 summer school, is there any follow-up when they come back to school to see if they've retained anything they did in summer school?
Not that I'm aware of.
So for me, that would be important data to determine, in 3 weeks, it's gonna be harder when it's a longer, if we'd had the comparison, that would have been nice, but is summer school really making a difference in
And,
that mode?
and that's one thing that we can do. We'll probably on our fall assessment, pull the kids that were in summer school and compare them, for our initial assessment, see if there was a change in their spring assessment. That's our best metric to do, but you are right. The question that we have been discussing as well is, what's needed and what are the benefits with it, with the time and versus cost and stuff is a factor. ESY students, and we have things put in place this year for a stronger thing with that. We actually have to know their functional levels of the things that are indicated for them on their IEPs, and we have to be able to measure that when we get back to school, because we have to show that they need ESY to either maintain or to have a drop. That's a requirement. So those will be in place, but for the students that aren't ESY, that's where we look at the scores, and so we'll be pulling those and comparing those after we get them assessed to see. But you are absolutely correct, because of that short time, it is difficult even to measure that with a student, because most of our assessments that we use compared to are measured over a period of time, which is generally quite a bit longer than 3 weeks, or less than 3 weeks, really, when you do the number of days. I'll bring back to you what we see with that. We may see, we'll just get it and we'll bring it back and show you.
Good question. Anybody else questions?
Just one quick comment. I just wanted to publicly recognize you guys for giving up your beginning of summer, and thank you for all the hard work you do for the students.
Yes, thank you guys very much. Okay, moving on to C, superintendent update, written report provided. Any questions on the written report? Okay, moving on to D, update regarding district-related matters, Superintendent Parsons.
Thank you, President Malkovich. Very exciting week, the first week of school. It's great to go around and tell the things that happened on Monday. It was great to go around and see the students and go in their classrooms and see the things happening at the different schools. I went into a class in the high school that I really liked, because it was dark in there, but there was a good atmosphere for kids learning. That was really good for my eyes. I mean, I enjoyed that classroom. We got to see the things that were working well in lots of places, and what I was very impressed with, and just want to point out the hard work of everyone in getting ready. Every classroom we went into, secondary, elementary, they were doing stuff. They were developing those relationships. They were all busy. They were all engaged, which we would totally expect all year long, but it was just so great to see that. And they were going over their expectations, setting up their all the stuff they needed to in their classroom, and it was really great. But I'd tell you that probably the best part of the day was in the last school that I went to. So I went in a funny order, and ended up with Lahontan at the end of the day. It was during their lunchtime. So I didn't get in classrooms at Lahontan, but I got to see them during lunch. And I walked in the cafeteria, and the first thing, this little girl brought this up and said, "Can you tell me what this says on it?" And it was a note from her mother telling her that she loved her and to have a great first day of school. And as I walked through the tables in there, seeing lots of kids with those notes, it just makes you feel good and realize just, how precious and how important what we're doing. And it goes back to that as educators, we have an impact on students. As parents, there's an impact on students. So everything that we do at school and in our homes, our community, has an impact on students. And it's always very important to remember that and consider what our impact is. Because every day can have a measured impact on our students. But it was really cool seeing those little kids with those notes. They were very happy when you read the notes to them. Okay. Also with that, on the first day, I was going to every school. There was a lot of work done in preparing everything. Grounds maintenance, custodial, did a lot of work getting everything ready. The schools looked really good in there. I know there's still a few things we're working on, and we've had a couple of issues the first week. Whenever we get lots of rain, we find leaks. And so it's a high school. Mr. Spencer over there, on the first day, there was a couple rooms, the air conditioning wasn't functioning so well. I mean, it was hot in there, so we told him we'd get it checked on. And, those, I believe, were the same rooms that now had as of yesterday with the rains, started getting a few, leaks from the rain. So, that's the one thing about living in the desert. We don't get enough rain to find all those leaks, but when we do, we find them fast. So Dustin had people working on those, trying to minimize the damage. And I think it sounded like it was raining again this afternoon on the way here. I haven't been out of the building for hours, so. But it was so great to see all of that. And to that, in transportation, we know start of the year with transportation is always tough. We are still recruiting and trying to find more drivers. We don't have enough people to meet the demands of everyone that wants to be on our buses. We're doing our very best with that. Yesterday, I did follow the buses around for a while after school and saw more of what they have to go through. And we'll keep doing that and looking for ways to improve the flow of traffic. Buses themselves would flow quite nice, but when you add the cars in the mix, the flow is rough, even at our schools that are better. And it's not just in now the schools, such as over at Numa. And now the school goes pretty good, but every car goes one or two ways to get back out of there because there's really no other exit points. You go to the right or to the left and right up to Harrigan, and that's it. And so there's a buildup in both places. So we'll continue to work on that, and hopefully we'll get that there. And our goal is to get everyone on the waiting list on the bus as quick as possible. We will identify over the first 2 weeks people that aren't going to be riding the bus have signed up for it and get those spaces filled rather quickly. The first week is a little bit harder to identify all of that because kindergarten students start the second week. And that's where we were able to really know for sure where we're at. But kudos off the bus drivers. I did stop and see them Monday after the first routes, and they were all very excited and happy and grateful to see their kids again. We did get notified on, not so good note, you've probably seen that the state was hit with a rather, I don't know, cyber attack or something. We don't know all the details, but we do know that it was quite extensive in the Department of Education. A lot of services things are not working, including they think that the regular pupil-centered funded payments to schools will be okay, but some of the grant reimbursements and things like that may take a little bit longer from them. Superintendents received an update from Dr. Canavero today on that, but they're working to restore that as quickly as possible, and Grants Management Unit have sent us phone contact information, things directly to them, and to help out if we are having any issues as far as funding draws and stuff. So hopefully that will all get resolved quickly, but as you've probably seen, you need to go to the DMV. You're not going yet. It's still closed as far as last that I saw. One thing that will impact us is I did see a posting that fingerprints weren't happening right now because that's all connected into their system. So I don't know if that's backing up and running yet, but new employees, we do have some new ones coming on that could make that process last a little longer. So we're also the week before we had our professional development days with our staff. There were lots of good things that happened on those days. I enjoyed going around and visiting with each school and sharing a few things with them. I shared with them some lessons that I taught out of the curriculum. I encouraged two things. One is that we get to know our students and develop relationships, and two is that we teach our standards, teach the curriculum. And we can modify and do things and do that, but we need to have fun with our students and engage them. And I did share that when I was in sixth grade, I used the curriculum. I used the books that we had. I used it, but I made my own lesson plans that utilized making a movie, and I showed them some of the movie that we made with some of the kids. And a couple of kids in there are currently teachers and stuff that we saw in there, but that was my way of reminding us that we're here to be engaged with our kids, develop those relationships, and teach them the things that they need to know. I want kudos out to Karina and Selena and all those at the school, and we had Deborah come in and help us a little bit as we usually do over the summer. We had someone in. They processed this summer over 400. Well, we've received over 400 registrations for new students into the district. So that's exciting that we have so many, and they've been going like great guns. They're just going like crazy, and people are still even today coming in to register students. So there's been a lot of work with that. We, had, what I would consider a really good startup with our school food program, with the school lunches and that. There were some bugs and things that had to be worked out as we expected, and we're still working them out. There are some issues and stuff with that. Each site had some individual issues that they're working out, but talked to Amber, and I know we received some third-hand reports that some kids hadn't been fed, had been told they couldn't, but as far as I don't have any personal knowledge of that happening, and if it did, we'll take care of that. At this point, we're still want every student to be able to get fed if they need to, and there's avenues and ways to do that. We're still working out the technology kinks, but we're getting through that, so I think everything's going to go good. With that, it was, I just want to give a shout out to Linnell and Mike worked a lot on that, and the business office helped Terry, and Amanda have helped a great deal, especially Terry, on getting things going over. The switching out of CEP back to the free and reduced lunch program was a way bigger undertaking than we thought it would be, and there was a lot more things there, but with a lot of work, it has gotten there, and the meals are going. And I even saw this morning somebody had posted up, here's what your kids are getting for breakfast. I believe it was at the high school, and somebody said that looks pretty good. It wasn't the breakfast, and that was one thing that they're excited with. Breakfast being in the cafeterias is that they can serve hot food and stuff again, that they can do more things than they could in the classroom, because they can keep it the right temperature and stuff for that. So we're excited about that. Okay, I have to put my glasses back on to see my notes. Just want to express my gratitude to the board and everyone that's here, also for everyone that's involved with the education of our students. I'm very excited for this school year. I don't want to mislead and say there aren't issues, because there are issues that we're working on, but we've got lots of things going, and we're finding solutions for everything that comes up. This is an exciting time of year. And one of the things we talked about when the calendar was changed and we started a little bit later was so it wasn't so hot. I think we achieved that this week. Maybe a little muggier than we'd planned, but it wasn't so hot this week. Just glad to not be out on the playa stuck in mud. As you know how that happens in Nevada. And so that's all that I have tonight.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Superintendent Parsons? I guess I have a couple. Are student numbers preliminary? Do they look up? You looked at them yet?
I thought about that earlier, but I didn't look.
Okay, because that seems like a lot of registrations.
That's more than we had graduate. You know, we will have had some left, but I'll try and pull up maybe.
And then the other one, kindergarten starts Tuesday, right?
Kindergarten starts on Tuesday.
They have people over there helping with traffic. Do you have a plan for that?
Kimmy, I think, I believe so. You know,
Okay.
Kimmy usually is really on top of that, but I'll check with her and make sure
Okay.
That we do.
I've just lived that for a while, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have NIAA or something.
I think we can find a vest for any board member that wants to come that morning. One quick thing, Greg, Northside's back to school night, the date had to change, September 11th, but the time will be the same.
It'll be the afternoon at 2:30 to 4 on September
11th. That has been changed, if you could note that.
Any other questions for Superintendent Parsons?
I have one.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could give us like a little update regarding the participation and interest in how successful the events have been regarding pushing information out on the changes with food services.
So we had the event here. We didn't get very many people through here the day we had the event. It was like 10 to 12, so we were able to help them. I know at the back-to-school events, Karina and Caitlin went to those and were able to be there to help people and answer their questions. I did see, I try to not spend too much time on Facebook, but I did see something that kind of gauged that, and I think answers this question. Is somebody had a question about that, and somebody else posted up. We've received a lot of stuff about that. The schools have done a good job communicating that, so we've sent a lot of information out, but again, we realize that some people may not have seen it. But at the back-to-school nights, I think there was potential to reach quite a few people, and it sounded like you guys were really busy at those events. And the other thing with that is, with the lunch program, is that, the files are all working from the state now, or they were till the, but, so we were able to pull in our direct cert file, which for free and reduced lunch, those are the students that qualify without needing to do an application, and it was, I believe, over 1,200 families. So those qualify without an application, so that's significant as well.
Just in the near future, obviously, we're not even 1 week into the school year. I would definitely be interested in hearing more about how that's running, because we haven't had a paid meal program in the last few years, and so I know that was requiring a lot on the part of food services and different staff members to get all of that set up with the student accounts and using their numbers to purchase and all of that. And I just would be interested in hearing in the future, maybe after first quarter or something, like, how are things working?
Well, definitely, and I'll try to include an update at the next board meeting as well, just on where we're at. But I'll tell you some of the obstacles that we've had to overcome. One of them that we're working on now is, we have the point of sale systems for each school. Well, they were in use before we went to CEP, and so they've been mothballed, sitting there. So getting those back in use has been tough. We're going to have to make some adjustments there, because they're not going to stay long. But I'll tell you, last Saturday, Linnell, she texted me and she said, or no, it was on Friday, she texted Mike and I, and she's like, I got to come back tomorrow. I didn't get to check them all. I want to go to each school and check them. So she came over Saturday just to double check every computer, and then we made some plans, and we hit, they weren't all working great. And we ended up with LaHont being kind of the test case, because fewer kids, because the kindergarten not being there to kind of work it through. But it worked, and I know some of the schools, they were able to get the stuff in there. They had backup plans for if the computers didn't work. But I do want to say, too, I don't know, there was a little miracle that happened there, because, I thought we're all ready for school, and, I don't get around to everywhere in every room, and the middle school cafeteria was in a refresh. So on Saturday, I went in there, and I'm like, what's going on here? There's no way this will be ready for Monday. They were in there painting in the cafeteria. They were still putting up tape to paint. I'm like, and I worried about all weekend, but I couldn't make myself go back and check. I'm just like, it's going to be ready. So Monday morning, I started at the middle school, because that's the first place I went. We need to arrange for the board members to go see this on there. The refresh was done in there. All the stuff's on the walls, painted up there. It looks really good. It was totally clean in there. Breakfast was being served. The tables were all out. So how they did that, and this was like at noon Saturday, before Monday morning. I don't know how they did it, but our hats, shout out to them, because they did that. I don't like that we were last minute, because that's kind of scary, but it was done, and it was there, and it does look really good in there, and that's a really important start for the beginning of the year for the middle school students. Is we're trying to develop some ownership and lots of good things, and some pride in our schools.
So for the families who automatically qualify without the needing to complete the forms because of their qualifiers elsewhere, how is that communicated to them?
They are mailed a letter in the mail, and through their portal, it is communicated to them through that. They receive it in there once it's processed. But the direct certs are all, we physically mailed a letter to each of them. I don't remember, did we email it home as well? I know we physically mailed that letter home. And we've had some calls, and for people to see if they did qualify, and there's only like 3 people that can tell them that, because that information we're not supposed to share out with schools, can't even know it. So when students go up, there's no way for staff at the school to see if they're free or reduced lunch. Either shows if they're free and reduced lunch, it shows, it turns green, they go. If it's red, it means that that there's no money. So there's no way, and we just found out too that there's rules about taking money that we weren't aware. So kids really, we're not supposed to allow them to during lunchtime to go up and pay for money at the time. They're supposed to pay ahead of time. or after, I guess, because you can't identify who's free and reduced lunch, and that way you're identifying who's not free and reduced lunch. So that's one of the rules with it that we just learned recently, like within the last few days, last week. So we're still working some of those things out. But yeah, they were all mailed a letter home on that one, those direct certs. And then we get a new file every month from the state, so any new direct certs, and we'll do the same process to notify them.
So for now, you're up to date in sending letters and...
Yes.
Okay. What about, so wonderful with letters and for those who qualify in that way, but for families who still have to do the application and are disadvantaged because they do not have easy access to online resources, how are we addressing that? Because the only way to do the application is through Infinite Campus.
Well, they can, if there's no other way, the schools can give them a paper application they can fill out, and then we can put the information in.
Okay.
So we do have that. Same thing, even sometimes there's a language barrier. We can convert that to a different language and get that and then put that in as well. And in Infinite Campus, it allows them to choose the language, and so they'll see the application in their language. And we have that with them, people, and so we have, in the events, we've had computers and things available to help people and do that and get their portal set up. But the goal is that we would, through our Safe Schools professional or some of the school, help everyone to be able to put an application in. And what that might look like at a school, and so we talked to administrators about this, and yeah, in the beginning, and I think we may have discussed it at one point. Any student, you know, if a teacher or staff member notices a student's not eating but needs or something, then we go to the administrator, the counselor. It should go there, and then they should work with the family to help. And if that's the case and they haven't been able to apply, they can work with the family and help them. So at that point, we're trying to help everybody that we can to do that. And that's a conversation they would have with the parents and stuff. Or, you know, we'll find ways. And as Amber's made it very clear, she's not interested in giving kids the bag of carrots, or what they used to call it, the meal of shame, that they didn't have. Her alternate meals are not so much different, and then we'll get with every child and find a way, because the goal is for kids to eat. We just don't have the money to fund everyone to eat, as we did on CEP, but we will find a way. Every school has some resources, and if they don't, and if they run out of those, we'll find other ways. I just look at that student individually when the teachers or someone notices there's an issue. And I know that's going to be a little bit harder in secondary. In elementary, the teacher's usually pretty good at picking that out and identifying. We're going to continue to reinforce that and point that out, that we got to be actively looking and monitoring kids and see if we notice any issues like that.
Anybody else? I have one more. You happen to have a middle school gym floor update?
You're trying to make me cry. I do not have a date yet. Dustin's trying to get more information from the insurance company. They're working on it. Had to go out to bid. The last update was they don't think any of this floor will be. They were still hoping to recover some of the floor and not have to replace it all. But they were getting to the point where they were saying, I think it's all going to have to be done. I didn't get confirmation. They were supposed to have the locker rooms finished before school started. They should have been ready to go on Monday in the locker rooms. But the gym floor, probably still, if they had to bid it out, I would say at least a month away, if not longer. Because they haven't removed it yet. They've removed some smaller portions of it, but the waves are still in there. You know, and I will say along with that, I know that with a new year, there comes new things that we do in each school and different policies, and the middle school is has been working very hard this year to set a thing at the start of school, and such as they'll know when students go down the restrooms and things, so that if there is vandalism and things done, that floor was a direct result of things that were flushed that shouldn't have been flushed down toilets that caused the backup. I mean, the toilet valve stuck. That happens, but the only reason for the backup was because of all the clothing items and others that were found down in the drains. And so they're trying to develop a sense of, you know, these have real consequences when things happen, and we need to be proud of our school and take care of things. So they're watching that really close. They're got some expectations being set up, and I know there's going to be a little bit of adjustment to that. But the amount of, and it's not about the money, is because we do spend a lot of money every year in repairing those things, and that's important. But it's about the respectful environment and the safe environment. Kids should feel safe going to the restrooms and know that they're going to function, they're going to work right, and there aren't issues in there. So they're working really, really hard on that, hoping that we see a change real fast. The middle school administration worked really hard to develop a good plan on that, and they have been sticking to it. I was there on Monday and saw them in action and moving around. They have certain times and kids are directed certain things. So I'm hopeful that we won't have the same issue ever again. But they're on top of it.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Okay, moving on to number 8 already. Business service update, budget to actual report, written report provided. Any questions? Okay, be up.
Sorry,
Yep, go ahead.
I just have one, and really it's more of a request. I made this same request a while ago, but obviously Barry wasn't here. For in the future, I personally would really appreciate seeing the budget to actual report without the encumbrance in there, because then we are able to see where we're tracking, at least if that could be provided like quarterly without the encumbrance. Because although we're projecting that as being spent, like, you know, as an example in salaries, you know, that's what we're projecting based on who's employed right now, but it's not actual. And so I would rather see on a percentage basis like how we're tracking when we look at that report, and so I prefer to see it without the encumbrance.
Sure, we can do that. We can actually do one with and one without. Would that be great? Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, update regarding other business items. Terry Lackey, do you have any?
Yeah, I just wanted to say with the food service stuff, we've had Michelle in the office kind of taking the initial review, and then I'm kind of the secondary review. And we've done 445 online applications. And I know we've had a mom come in the other day. She sat with her and walked her through the process. We had one on the phone that didn't speak English, and we just went over to Andrea and we've helped them. So we've gotten a few paper ones. So I think it's going. They're pretty good, yeah. And we're getting in the audit because they're coming the 15th of September. We're getting that done. Okay?
Thank you. Any other questions for Terry? Okay, so back to school events. We have Northside now on September 11th, 2:30 to 4. EC Best, September 10th, 5 to 6:30. Upcoming board events, there are A through D. Any questions on the upcoming board events? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. For possible action, items may be pulled for discussion. A, approval of recommended personnel action. B, approval of FY25 vouchers. C, approval of FY26 vouchers. D, approval of July payroll. E, approval of July 24, 2025 regular board meeting minutes. F, approval of student 2504 for the GED program. G, approval of student 2505 for the GED program. H, approval of transportation contract for Nicholas McNeil for the 25-26 school year mileage reimbursement.
I move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
I have a motion by Trustee Whitaker, a second by Trustee McFadden. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? And then I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It is unanimous. Reports by board members. Trustee McFadden, do you have anything?
So I was able to join Daryl in his visits to the schools before the start of the year, and in his meeting with the teachers and his pep talk, as I guess you could call it. I thought it was good to see. There was a lot of smiles, a lot of laughter. Look, overall, like the attitudes were very positive in the rooms, so it was good to see teachers coming back. And then I attended all but one of the back-to-school nights. They all seemed to be well organized and attended. All the teachers were in their classrooms helping students, and there was plenty of staff in the hallways directing and helping out questions. And then I also attended the district's suicide awareness training. One of my takeaways was the data they shared in there, that the official data is 1 in 4 people struggle with suicide. They're working on a new report coming after COVID that it's actually more like 1 in 3 people struggle with suicide. And I think it's important as educators and people that spend large amounts of time with our students that we are trained in suicide awareness and know the signs and symptoms to get them help.
Thank you. Trustee Whitaker.
So the awards committee for the NASB Awards completed the nominations, and they were submitted last week. So for our district, those have been completed, and Wendy and Jennifer and I worked on those. Julie. Sorry, Julie. And then policy committee, which Julie is on, not her twin sister, Jennifer. And Wendy also, I guess we're all met recently, and you'll see the ones that we worked on for first reading this past month. Because this first month of school is so busy, we will not be meeting again until October. But you'll notice significant changes in our curriculum policies, especially for this go around. I will be in Los Angeles in 2 weeks for national board meetings and the Council of Urban Schools meetings. So I'll bring back any interesting information, pertinent information from that. And then I was able to catch parts of Superintendent Parsons' welcome back and talks to Lahontan, Numa, and Churchill. Glad that I was able to participate for a little bit in each of those, and then in attendance at the Churchill back to school.
Thank you. Trustee Gale. Trustee Blake.
I also attended the Suicide Awareness Save Talk training at Lahontan, and I realized, like, I did not know hardly anything about the signs, and so it was really neat to be able to talk to the one of the presenters who actually deals with high school kids and teens, and to listen to their stories of how it works, or, you know, like how you could talk to someone, it's really awkward, but how you try to make it as comfortable as you can. So that was just really neat. It's kind of different when you're learning with kids of the, you know, with the staff that teaches littler kids that may or may not have to address that. So so that was kind of cool to see the difference of how they taught that. And I also attended the high school back to school night. It was a fantastic event. It was crowded, and I think the high school did a fantastic job putting that on. So thank you to the high school.
Thank you. Trustee Guerrero-Getch.
Yeah, not to sound too redundant, I'll just jump on to say a couple things. Although I wasn't able to attend the staff suicide prevention training, I know that there's another date coming up for that, and I just wanted to give a shout out because I am on the policy committee, and the people that worked on that, and especially Catherine, for your work on not only the training and the policy and everything that you've done with that. I just commend you for that. Wanted to say thank you again, because that has been something that very near and dear to my heart that I have been pushing for, and so I'm very excited to see that we're finally rolling out the training, and I'll be looking forward to future events for the students and things like that as well. And then just lots of kudos to maintenance, because the schools are looking great, and the high school flooring and paint and everything that's been going on in our schools. So thank you to the maintenance crew for all their work over the summer, because things are really looking polished. So thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Bullock.
Today is one of those days you should have started with me, remember? We talked about that.
Yes, we did.
So, right. The same for me. I went to a couple of the back-to-school nights. They were great. The middle school and the high school were really crowded. There was a lot of kids there, but good to see that they're all utilized their time and that they had to come and view the school. I thought that that was super positive. I also got to go to Lahontan, and one of my favorites is just seeing the littles run around. They're so excited to see their new classes and stuff, and I got to visit with a couple of teachers that I love so much. Celeste and I actually did an online class, too, a few weeks ago, about strategic planning for the school district. And that was kind of eye-opening for us, because we weren't a part of the board when you guys made the plan, and good to know that we are right on track where they think that we should be. And we have another class tomorrow, so, but we also have to present. And I think that's about it for me. Sorry if you had to hear things twice.
Thank you. I also attended, Superintendent Parsons went to all of the schools at Northside with him. It was great to see all the staff excited to start with students. I know there was times they were looking at their watches thinking, can we please get to our rooms, because we want to get back to students, and I couldn't blame them for that. I also want to thank the policy committee. You guys have done a great job of catching some of those up that might have fallen a little bit behind. Thank you. And we will move on to new business.
Can I add one thing real quick that your reports remind me of? Thank you too. And with the suicide prevention, it was, and I lots of positive feedback from that. And Catherine worked very hard, and it was not easy to pull that off and get everybody in one day. And that included district office staff, maintenance workers. I'm going to be on the makeup day because everything's happening. So we will have at least one makeup day. We have one scheduled now, and we'll try to have more. And we'll send you those dates in case you're available to do that. It was, September 26th is the current one. But it was really amazing to see that this is the direct result of the policy committee and doing those things, and that was really important to see that happening. And it was just absolutely very important to us, and the things that we need to know. And I just want to thank, because it was a lot of work from the board and from everyone in getting that happening. And especially want to thank too the Central Nevada Health District, Shannon Ernst. They helped to arrange this also, and they funded some of this stuff and things happening. And so they're working with us on that, and it's a part of the bigger community-wide suicide prevention plan that we've been a partner with and been working to develop. It's been developed. So it's our community, our little community of Fallon, Churchill County, has been doing quite a bit towards this, and it is going to be very beneficial for our students and our families, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I hope this was one of the intents of the policy committee when those two policies were written, that staff understands that we are absolutely concerned about our students and how they are, but I hope they're looking at their coworkers. I hope they are paying attention to their coworkers as well. Mention at Lahontan that, well, when they're that little, you're not really, but you absolutely are working with adults who might be struggling, and how critical it is to not overlook that for all of our staff.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, new business. A, for discussion and possible action, approval of employment contract for Amanda Hammond, Comptroller. Superintendent Parsons.
So trustees, you'll see in your packet copy of the contract that we negotiated with Amanda Hammond. So our comptroller search has been going on for quite a while, and we've spent a lot of time and resources in advertising out and trying to find, and we were working hard to try and find people to bring in, because it's not a position that is hard to find people for, that have the skills to do that position, that want to come work in the public school system and do that. And really, I had given up on finding someone within our community, and then we ended up, we had 3 applicants we interviewed, and then the committee ended up, and we offered the job to Amanda Hammond, she is from Fallon. Amanda, you can come up if you want and sit up there. Many of you know her. It was unusual, I guess. And you can go all the way up the table, because they may have a question or two for you. Sorry. Welcome to the board meeting, huh? She was an art teacher, and one thing that really convinced me that she is dedicated to our district thing is that the fact that one of her hesitations and concerns about taking the position was her students, and leaving her students at the high school, because she's done a good job with them, and she has made that connection. And I realized, too, that demonstrated to me that she has an understanding of what our purpose is in education. And the financial side of education is to support that purpose, support the education of our students. And that's why it's critical that we have the right person in that position, doing the right thing, that has the skills. She answered our questions. We did have Terry involved in that process, because Terry's been filling in and done a wonderful job and helped us through this, but her knowledge base and her history with the district is very valuable. And the checking on her work and the work she'd done previously was very good, and I'm convinced she has the skills and is the right person for our district to be our comptroller. She has been here, has been doing some work and stuff, and is getting things understanding. And when I've asked for things already, I have them fast. So I'm normally that wouldn't happen, but where we are in the school year and the timing, we did do that. So we're asking you to approve after, and if the board doesn't, then we'll backtrack and see what we do. But I'm confident in Amanda and her ability, and the team worked hard and was very in depth with the interview. And she has previous knowledge with some governmental accounting, which was uncommon in people that we interviewed or even that applied. We did push this out in different platforms, and we had applicants that we chose not to interview because there weren't reasons to indicate that they would be in our position. In the end, we have Amanda. She's from Fallon, went to school here, and is dedicated to here. And I just can't speak enough about how happy I am to have her here. And Aaron, do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself real quick before the board has discussion?
Real quick tap.
Quick tap.
Yeah, like Daryl mentioned, I do have previous governmental accounting experience. I worked at CC Communications for 2 years. Ended up leaving because we moved to Germany for a year. But even after I resigned from that position, we weren't quite leaving yet, so I came back as a contractor. So yeah, I have lots of experience there, lots of accounting experience. I always say that teaching was kind of a detour for me, but glad to be back on this side of things. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions?
We're looking forward to having you at the table. Terry's nodding vigorously, and want to thank Terry for what she's done for us in the meantime. It was significant for us, but we look forward to working with you.
If I could add one thing, I do want to say too that she does come into this position knowing full well where we are, what the financial status is, what we're looking at, and that we have a lot to plan for, budget with, and things to look at. So I didn't try to save that till after she was hired. She's aware of what we're looking at for this next year, and is committed to helping us find the ways to figure that out.
I was just going to ask is, again, thank you to Terry for jumping in and helping us out for these months. And is Terry going to be with us, like helping with the transition and helping you get familiar with everything?
We have told Terry that she is, but, I try not to look at her when I say that, because she might, she's looking forward to being retired again. But yes, she is, and she's willing to come in and help us for what's needed. And when I look back and see too, since Terry has retired, she's come in and helped us quite a bit over the years. And so she's still willing to do that. I don't know for how long, but she has, agreed to that. I don't know if there's any nuance about it, Terry, but we realize the importance of that in training a new person. I think a position like a comptroller, you're not going to learn it all in 1 year. There's things you do once. It's going to take at least a 2-3 year cycle, if not longer. And Terry, the resource for that she's willing to help. And I'm not looking at her now in case she's shaking her head no, but no, she has agreed to help us with that and do that. But she is also looking forward to a little more retirement time.
Well, welcome, and we're sad to lose you as a high school art teacher, but we're excited to have you in the finance office.
Thank you. I'm excited to leave the students, or I'm sad to leave the I'm excited to be here, very sad to leave the students. I saw a student yesterday in the dance studio, and she just looked at me and was like, so I'm going to miss them, but it was a great experience.
When we were at the high school, I didn't have all district staff there, district office, but telling them who the main positions were, and we got to comptroller. I said, I'm just going to skip that one because I got some evil looks. But I will say, you know, showing with her dedication, I know that Mr. Spencer contacted her, and she spent some time Saturday helping out the new art teacher, that everything just aligned and worked. So we have a new art teacher at the high school, and she helped her out in getting ready for the first day of school and stuff. So appreciative of that.
Well, we'll see how excited you are to be comptroller during your first legislative. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the employment contract for Amanda Hammond as a comptroller.
We have a motion by Trustee McFadden, a second by Trustee Guerrero-Getch. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? It is unanimous. Welcome, Terry. Thank you again. Okay, moving on to B for President. Go ahead.
President, you know, at this time, if it's okay with you, I think Terry's expecting her to trade places. Is that right?
I think it sounds perfect. Going back to business update, does anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on to B, for presentation and discussion only. Presentation on ChurchillCSD New Teacher Academy 2025-2026 training in support of new teachers, alternative route to licensure teachers, and long-term substitutes. Presenter Jennifer John.
Hi, Jennifer Jahant, Churchill County School District teacher on special assignment through Northwestern Regional Professional Development Program as a learning facilitator and instructional coach. As long as the presentation. So the New Teacher Academy, this is the third year.
Can I interrupt for one thing real fast?
Yeah.
Sorry. I messed up. I did want to tell you, next month, so her presentation is on the New Teacher Academy. I did pick this out. It's our lead, Churchill lead, that Jennifer's been working on with RPDP that starts later this month, which she'll be presenting on next month. And that's about what we're doing to build up future leaders, administrators, and school leaders. So we'll have that presentation, and that's what this is about. And it was part of my update that I didn't mention, but just so you know that this one is for our teachers, but the next month you'll have one on what we're doing to develop our leadership within the district. Sorry for the interruption. We'll get you back on the roll.
Don't worry, I think you were heading off anticipated possible questions. Okay, so for the New Teacher Academy, this is the third year that I've been in the position through RPDP as a TOSA. This is the third year that I've been working with new teachers. Anyone in education will tell you the third year is when you get your groove. I'm really excited about the changes that we're making moving forward this year. So over the past couple of years, we've had 15 long-term subs that successfully transitioned through the ARL program. I am definitely credit for this. But as a support, the New Teacher Academy has been there along with mentors to help give them guidance and give them strategies. Nothing can replace a pre-service educational program, but definitely the focus that I have had is working on strategies that they can implement for classroom management, or just trying to build a baseline of pedagogy from the beginning so that they have something to work with. I will say that I have probably influenced this because we love our schedule in Churchill County. We covet those Fridays, and they're stuck with me on those Fridays. So I think it's been a motivator for them to continue on and make sure that they're completing their education so they can get fully licensed and get off-boarded from being part of the New Teacher Academy. Service teachers in years 1 through 3 when they're new, and all long-term substitutes. So far, we've had a handful of people who've been long-term subs year over year. Some of them are experiencing year 3 with me this year. I'm very grateful that they are mostly transitioning to ARLs, and so they're going to be fully licensed educators and have a different kind of structure and evaluation process. Since 2023, I would say that the strategies and things that I've done in the classroom with these guys has essentially affected 5,500 students. That's based on the amount of secondary and elementary students that have gone through the program over the past couple of years, averaging that any high school or middle school student would have approximately 25 students in their class and have either the 5 or 6 class periods they've had over the past couple of years, in addition to the elementary schools having approximately 20 class. So it is a round number, not an exact calculation, but anybody who's been in and out of a school would know that there are no exact calculations for a classroom size. It fluctuates continuously throughout the year. They've asked at the beginning and asked at the end and gotten to very different numbers. Over the past couple of years, as I've done surveys with the people who are participating, there's been continuous improvement across all strategies that are being taught. Some more than others. Some things are easier to implement than others, and because there's been pre-K all the way to 12th grade teachers involved, different strategies are going to work more effectively depending on what your content area is and what your grade level is. These are some of the quotes. I know that you guys have the slides, don't you? These are some of the quotes. I think my favorite one is the last one. I've definitely gotten some great ideas for strategies and ideas from other new teachers, which would work super well for my classes. And definitely an objective to mine to have a lot of peer-to-peer collaboration inside this environment with guidance. I think that modeling what the expectation is for our teachers in their classrooms with their own students interacting is really valuable, and you're going to get the best support from the people who are in the trenches with you. Like I said, a PA teacher is not going to be able to have a great conversation with a middle school math teacher, but if you put a couple middle school people together, they are working with the same grade level of students, so when you talk about management opportunities, they can collaborate with one another, and absolutely did. This year's group, as of when I put this together a week ago, so it is a moving model at this point. We had 5 long-term substitutes in the program. 3 are expected to transition to ARL licenses this school year. 22 participants total, 17 secondary teachers, 5 elementary teachers. And at this time, we're uncertain about the mentorship program based on funding. Some title funds have kind of shuffled around a little bit. So we're hopeful that the highest needs might be able to have mentors, but that's TBD. The Academy runs on 7 Blue Fridays throughout the school year. I tried to space them apart as well as possible and not take anything that was attached already to a 3-day weekend. Really trying to be mindful of the benefit that this schedule provides to teachers, to students, and taking away those opportunities to go do activities with their family is definitely not what the objective was. The sessions run from 8:30 to 11:30. There's a lot of research done on the whole day through. Is not going to result in any more learning, but it will result in brain fog, and then nothing is taken away from an event. I've been consistently using AI as a work partner. I've been to several different conferences. Again, with such a wide variety of teachers, grade levels, content levels, I'll do some generalized instruction about what we're working on, and then all of the teachers are provided with scenarios based on their content and grade level space to work through. These are all of the topics for this year: classroom management, unpacking the standards, wanting to really reinforce the work that we're doing around modern learning, vocabulary instruction, and background knowledge building, both things that are huge in terms of success academically across the board and for assessments as well. Formative assessments, so that we're really utilizing data-driven instruction, exploring AI, and then reflection on this year and planning for next year. I think that being a reflective educator is one of the most important things you can bring to the table if you're not thinking about how that went and how it can be improved. or whether you skip that one altogether next year because it didn't connect, then you're not teaching as much as talking. Yes. This year, one of the things I'm excited about with the NEPF pilot program that we're in, and knowing that so many of our long-terms are transition educators, I'm really embedding the NEPF back into this. It was definitely part of what was discussed last year through the coursework, but it's a lot more embedded and, of course, more deliberately and intentionally putting the profile in. Objective for me is to try and model how you can refer back to the profile. That was what I presented on when I went around with Superintendent Parsons last week. That it's not another thing, that it's things you're already doing, but just intentionally utilizing the language so that we're teaching the kids that they are a communicator, they are a collaborator, et cetera. I did transfer everything into Canvas this year, and I know that I've talked to Superintendent Parsons about this, but I don't think Assistant Superintendent Walker knows. All three of the district office hierarchy are going to be teachers in the Canvas class. I don't anticipate they're going to have too much go in there and check assignments. They'll have visibility on what the assignments are and what the completion is like from the people who are participating in the new teacher program.
I did have a question, and you kind of answered it. It seems like this program is helping to improve like a grow your own teacher pipeline, which is great to see that we have long-term subs moving into the ARL and licensed space. And it looks like this program is successful. Thank you for your work. What roadblocks or challenges do you see that the district can help for future success?
Everything comes down to money, right? There's only one of me, and I think that's probably the biggest obstacle. I know I'm grateful for that they've managed to find title funds to pull on Lynn Strasden and pull on Patty Fleming to be able to be other support. This year, Holly, last name, from RPDP is going to be helping. Holly Young is going to be supporting through RPDP as well. So I think the biggest thing is just more support. And I teach 4 to 5 other classes consistently throughout the year at night, and then plan and prep for those, and then try and get into classrooms as much as possible. But I think that's probably the biggest thing, is kind of teacher instructional support, opportunity for it to be inside of the classroom more and give feedback in a more immediate space, in the same way we would as students. I can talk to a teacher or go through a classroom, but if I don't have the ability to like get a hold of them immediately and kind of have that feedback conversation, then it disappeared. You know, secondary is teaching the same thing 4 or 5 times in a row. I reference something that I saw in second period because I meet with them after school. Second period was a lifetime ago. So kind of that opportunity to have instructional coaches more present, probably the only thing that I can.
Do you think that'll kind of help with what the high school is doing, changing their model and moving the VPs into more instructional assistant roles?
That was my question. Would it be possible to marry those in some way? Thank you.
I just had a couple questions. So on the the outcomes slide, I was just looking at in the 23-24 year, you had 13 secondary teachers, and then for this last school year, 24-25, you had 23. Do you know how many in the 24-25, like, were all 13 still in, or, and how many were new versus, like, how many carried over?
I think there were 2 that were still in.
Okay.
The rest were people who were either new into long-term sub, new into ARL, new into B&I. Business and industry licenses have come in a little bit as well. So there were some people there, and then there was just a couple of brand new people, which is so exciting because they're really hard to come by. People who just like graduated from college and said, I want to do this. We did have a couple of those last year as well.
And what is the, like, average length of time that somebody who wants to be on one of those tracks is with you in this program?
Depends on how quickly they move. Different programs have kind of a different timeline. As we talked about, Cameron spoke about earlier, the UNLV program, you're going without a bachelor's degree, so that one's going to take a little bit longer.
Okay.
Some of the other ARL programs are going to move you through a lot faster. So it really kind of depends on the program that they're in and what education they're walking into this industry with.
Okay, and thank you. And my last question is, on the slide regarding, like the before and after class results. So I know there was obvious improvement, with all of the strategies, being taught when they're measured like before and after. So the different topics that are, listed there at the bottom, are those just various different segments of like a course that's taught? And then how is that measured? Are you having them take like a pre-assessment on their knowledge in a certain area and then a post, or how are you measuring that?
So it is different strategies that were taught throughout the course of different classes and different meetings. I do a post, a pre-post, working with people that are much smarter than me at RPDP and who've been doing it for a lot longer. They have said that people will typically rate themselves as more knowledgeable than they are if you give them a pre. If you give them a pre-post at the end, they'll be more honest with, oh, it turns out now that I've sat through this, gained this information, I didn't know as much about it as I thought I did, and I actually feel like I know quite a bit more now. So people aren't as comfortable saying, I'm a 2, I'm a 5-point scale. They feel like it makes them look like they don't know anything, versus on the back end, they're like, yeah, I didn't really learn too much about that, but now I feel like I know a lot. So I do a pre-post at the end.
Great, well, thank you.
Since you mentioned that you do have a couple of trained licensed teachers who are attending, are there continuing ed credits attached to this?
So, good question, I'll answer that. So how this works is we have an agreement with the CCEA, where the new teachers go, this is part of their contract, the new ones. And what we do, since we don't add to the salary, but we allow the credits earned in this to be used for salary advancement. So that's their, and actually that, when you put the numbers down, that's really good for them. And one of the things that we've done with this too, and like I know some people, like they've been long-term subs for more than 1 year, or then we make them go back again. My stance is, and our stance that we talked about is, until you're fully licensed in there and have that experience, you're still learning, and we want you to have as much support as possible. We get you to that point. So once you get to that point, so if you don't want to go on those Fridays, then get your license so you can get to that time, and then you don't have to go. We really want to support them, but we also got to move that along. That's how it's working.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear for those who want to do it just for professional enrichment that they can count that.
They all have mentors, right? The new teachers and the...
They have.
Give me the question mark.
I believe that's an Amanda question now.
But the question mark means we've had some grant funds that we've used to pay for mentors to do this. With some of the things we're trying to adjust some more grant funds to do that. I think it's safe to say that everybody goes in and ends up with an unpaid mentor, people they work with, that we've had requirements we've expected from a mentor, and now that we have our finalized funding things, we're trying to get that in there, all of these people. We're asking the mentors to do things outside of contract times. We want to make that happen.
So since we brought up funding, we all know that high quality instruction for our students comes from highly qualified and trained teachers. So I would like to see some budget priority attached with this program.
And that's what we've been doing with that.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to C. Discussion of possible action report on Churchill County High School plan to prepare students for the ACT test scores for the 25-26 school year. Center Superintendent Parsons and Tim Spencer, high school principal.
So, and I'll start with it. You know, Tim prepared a material that you have in board book, and I haven't had a chance to review it. We can go through some of that and review that, but the real change that we're talking about doing with our scores has to do with a lot of things that we've been implementing, trying to make system-wide changes. As we know, and as we looked at this and we talked about it, and we even talked more about it today, that sometimes there are things you can do to jump a test score up a little bit, but we're trying to make a real lasting change in our entire system so that we don't have to have the discussion, what are we going to do to increase our scores, because we've got them up there. And that's what this is based on. Because there are some things that we can do that, and he'll talk a little bit more about that, as far as test prep and things like that for the kids that are going to be taking the test. But the results in the ACT, and you can take that because the ACT is what Nevada's using to do that, which is a college entrance exam or a placement exam. Really not the right assessment for all kids, but that is what we are held to, and that's what we must do right now for this. So as we do that and we look at it, it's that whole system preparation to get them there that we're looking at, because the high school doesn't prepare them for the ACT in 2 years. The system, their educational experience should prepare them for the ACT starting from the day they enter kindergarten or preschool. And that's what some of the things that looking at, that we're trying to align those, have that vertical alignment, because that vertical alignment is it's crucial in everything that the board's goals, everything that's trying to do. Vertical alignment is key in that. That's what we're trying to really focus on right now. You have more that you want to say with that, Tim? And I think we have it. We can put it up, Joey, I think. No, not this. Okay, you have it in there.
Presentation from a couple things that just from the get-go, ACT for this coming year, they have addressed some of the concerns that we talked about. So they've reduced overall test by 44 questions, which reduces the amount of time that the actual test takes, but increases the time students have to take on each question. So the fact that they have acknowledged that, it's pretty flagrant across the nation. Students are not performing well. So just that piece in itself will lend its results, hopefully. It does not affect the way that they grade or the content that's in there. But timing, and I think the last time that I was here, we spoke about if students had an opportunity to spend enough time on questions that are being asked, the likelihood of them being able to answer that was greater than, they literally have did have 45 seconds a question. I couldn't do that. I would challenge that a lot of people could do that. So that's being addressed. What I wrote in my report, there's a whole lot of information in there. I did ask Daryl, maybe next board meeting or the one after that. I think it would be really great if my team came. There's a pretty astonishing amount of initiatives that we are implementing at the high school. All great. Some of those you're aware of, some that you're not. Some of the things I've listed in this document really talk about becoming a highly reliable organization or high reliable school. And really, the basis of that is to provide a service to our students that's very consistent, that they can see every day in every class. So an example of that might be, I'll ask you the question, how many of you have been to a Starbucks, an In-N-Out Burger, or Chick-fil-A? Right? So when you go there, you already know what the menu is, you know what the experience is, you know how much it's going to cost, you know everything. So you're comfortable in that environment. Our system is going to look very similar. So every classroom that a student goes into, procedures and systems are identical. Mr. McFadden, you talked about, highly effective instruction in every classroom. That's actually part of this framework. So we have identified, several, 43 to be exact, very specific instructional practices that are part of our instructional framework. Those are going to be implemented and supported through our assistant principals who are now in the classroom coaching and modeling. That impact is going to be significant. The curriculum resources that were purchased, Travis and, well, we bought a math, I can't think of the name.
McGraw-Hill.
There we go. Both of those systems have embedded into their content resources for ACT. In addition to our, those have a multitude of practice items that staff can do. Another thing that we implemented that I didn't put in here necessarily, this year, or over the past couple of years, we have begun to move staff. The thought is to put staff that are cross-curricular, even grade bands. So right now, at the high school in the main building, have social studies, English, and special ed teachers that are aligned grade level specific. And the purpose of that was to provide them an opportunity of real lifetime interaction. Social studies, I work with the English teacher. There's so many cross-curricular connections with standards that they can embed into their practice. We had great examples of that happening today. Social studies teacher working with English. English is stating these are areas that that we already see or that we know our students going to struggle with. How can you support that in your classroom? And that was done just by a simple move to build out these teams. So that's something that we believe will have serious impact. We don't have that information, obviously, to date, but that's a model that you see in elementary schools. Elementary teachers teach all content. They embed all of that into big units, and what happens is the student focus on digging deeper into content and not doing so much work. So their learning is very impactful. That theory, we are testing that at the high school. As I reported in our system, or in the proposal here, is a opportunity for staff to identify standards that would be taught in ACT. So the challenge there, the ACT, what's assessed on the ACT is not necessarily what the state of Nevada has identified as essential content standards. So for example, English, for the high school, we've identified vocabulary acquisition as a level 2, like a supporting standard. Well, ACT, that is a big standard. So that's something that our staff will have to embed into the classroom to ensure that that can be addressed and prepare students for this assessment. There are many examples of that happening on that ACT assessment. I'd say probably the most impactful opportunity that we have right now is to have this articulation with middle school, 6th grade through junior. Ms. Strasden, thankful that she's here. We've gained data previous years, but not at this light speed that she has. So we have identified, or she has identified, 100 students from middle school that are credit deficient and really clearly not ready for a high school classroom. It's amazing opportunity that we have that data this quickly. That's something that we haven't had in the past.
Can I add something about that too?
Sure.
When I was over there on the first day of school, I believe that's the group that, certain staff members had been assigned to connect with. And I think some of them had like 20 to connect with each. And I talked to one teacher who had connected with 18 of the 20, before we were there already. They were out to connect with those kids on the first day. And with that, the ones identified, and Dr. Paredes here, and we've had the discussion. She's committed to seeing this too in the middle school and high school, that alignment being better on the preparing things, so it's not middle school, high school, it's the whole part of the vertical experience with that. And so what Tim's talking about, we will be doing with that in making that connection stronger.
That quick information in these checks, that those students, you know, at some point there will be a plan developed to help them supported. Really, by the time you're a freshman, you have 2 years and a couple months before you take the ACT. Not a lot of time to be able to take an assessment that is 11th grade level, which is extremely high level. It's a college entrance exam. And the math is just difficult. So I think having her team putting that together and everyone understanding the goal there is going to make a huge impact as well. And finally, talk about the articulation. Students, changing the mindset is huge for this as well. Students, by the time if they haven't heard this earlier than 9th grade, it's difficult to get them excited about taking a college entrance. We have some plans for that. One, I will say this, our kickoff speaker, we talked about for our staff, we wanted them to understand what this generation is, how they think, ways to connect, and we had a 90-minute session with a very, very impressive gentleman out of Reno. He comes with a lot of background. He provided us real live information, takeaway tools, first session of the day, 90-minute, and the staff loved him. So our goal, President doesn't know that, but we were going to try to invite him back several more times. He does cost a little bit, but it's worth it. To have staff say, I could listen to that guy all day, bringing him back, it was amazing. So all of those pieces that are going to set the table for us, I think we're in a better spot than we've ever been in terms of that initiative. And this will make much more sense when we have the opportunity to present our whole package. I'll bring the whole team, and you'll really get to know what we're trying to accomplish over at the high school. How's that?
Questions? Go ahead.
I just wanted to start out by saying I know this report was at the direction of the board, and I'm sure you had a million other things to do this summer, so I really appreciate the time and work that you and your team put into creating it. Like you said, turning the conversations into an actual written plan that everyone can see and follow and know what's going on is very valuable. I did have a question about how collaboration with the middle schools mentioned throughout the plan. Ask on if that collaboration has started, and it kind of sounds like it's well on its way, working with the middle school.
Yep, so and the plan outlined, this is not a 1 year, this is going to take us some time. And, you know, when I was thinking through the plan and, you know, concerns that I would have, the concern is there's an urgency for students to perform well on the ACT. So when there's urgency, you don't have 2 or 3 years to make a plan. but that's this plan. I feel like the team, we've been able to meet with, and get to know middle school team, at a different level than I've ever had before. Our teams did meet, for professional development before school started, just to talk through some math and to identify students and needs, et cetera. So that bridge is there, and I believe our teams will be able to make this articulation. And once that's in place, then this thing will start to flow out.
And one more small, I guess you could call it a critique, and I hate to call it that, regarding the metrics of success. How do you plan on monitoring and measuring those? The district throughout consistently uses the SMART goal framework. I didn't quite see that in your metrics of success.
Yeah, so this was just a kind of a verbalization of what the plan looks like. Our school improvement plan that we submit to the state is all based on SMART goals. We have to have evidence in there, and in that system, it requires us to meet, 5 or 6 times a year to evaluate what's happening. So I can assure you all of those items are listed in our plan, and I'm assuming they'll be getting that, right? Maybe the board get our plan?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So as soon as the button is hit for submit, I'm sure you'll get all of that.
Can I add one thing? Oops, sorry. Go ahead. And one thing too that I find interesting in my conversation with Tim about this too is that we're talking about that and what he's just said about the urgency to get it there, and sometimes we look at the practice tests and the test preparations. That's how we do well in the test. It's not really the case. Did you tell what you shared with me that some of the students told you about the practice exams and things that they did and what impact they felt it had on them?
Yep, and then that's a challenge, right? Because what is submitted out for practice opportunities, it doesn't align with the actual test. So English is a little bit better, but math, students, because what we did is we had the students come into the library, and I just sat with them and we just conversed, and I took notes. Math were things that they had no idea. And when I say no idea, this would be W&C kids, our high flyers, our rate. So it was across the board. Wow, that was a lot. So that is a piece, and those practices don't really constitute a successful ACT program. The prepping, the tutoring pieces. This articulation with the middle school, high school, our instructional framework. So the goal of that, and we be able to predict before a kid enters to take a state or local assessment. We already know, we can predict this amount of students are going to be proficient on these targets, these skills, and so we're not just sitting here waiting for results. We will have that information ahead of time. That is the whole goal of becoming a high reliable school. Not waiting, we are forward thinking, we have the information, and we're attacking those deficits that our students.
I'm really anxious to see the success of embedding the ACT content into the everyday courses, and as the students they get that vocabulary and that familiarity with the content every day instead of just during a test prep at the end of the year. Completely forgot where I was going with that, but I'm excited to see the success for that.
The same for me. Joe kind of stole it with his first question, or with his first statement, but I'm just really excited, as we've already spoke last year about the middle school and how important I thought that was to start this process for graduation, for ACT, for college, long before we even hit high school. If we're not acknowledged in all of these things by the time we hit high school, we've already dropped the ball. It's too late. It's not going to happen now. So as we're sitting over here making these goals at this 90% graduation rate, 95%, you know, all these things, we've already lost if we didn't start way back when. So I just really appreciate when I saw it in here that the mindset shaping at my house, we personally call it brainwashing, but because I've already brainwashed my student that these are the things that he's going to do, but you said it much kinder. I really appreciated all of that, and the entire report, I really appreciated reading all of it, and I'm excited just the same to see where we go with this. Thank you.
I had a couple questions for you. Going back to the comment you made earlier about Ms. Drasden identifying the 100 students that were not prepared for the high school that are coming out of the middle school, I didn't really catch, like, what's going to happen with those kids. Are we just watching them, or are we advancing them and moving them forward? Because then I feel like the problems keep perpetuating when kids keep getting past the next grade level when they're not ready.
I think the nature, and I'll let her speak, but the nature of our system and our process is at such a different level than it has been since I've been here. There is a whole process where students, it's a live, active document. We have many resources that we identified for support mechanisms. It's really about open two-way communication about the needs of our students and the supports that are available.
Hi. Tricia Strasden, Dean of Students at Churchill County High School. So right away when I got hired, one of the first things I did was reach out to Linnell and said, I'm interested in understanding who's coming to the high school. And so I would expect that the other data I was looking for, I would already have access to, but the one class obviously I wouldn't would be incoming freshmen. She sent me data on MAP scores. She sent me data on major behavior. She sent me data on chronically absent, habitually truant, SARB contracted. She sent me data on credit deficiency, and I put together a massive spreadsheet on all of those kids. If you qualified in any one of the areas I just mentioned, I have you on that list. Sometimes you just qualify obviously in one of those, and sometimes you qualify all the way across the board, which is not actually that uncommon. So once those students were identified, we broke those students up so that we could jump right on them day one, right? Not in any type of punitive function, obviously, just being there to say, hey, this year can look different than last year or any of your other academic years. And these are the supports that we have for you. This is where you can find us. We're going to be following you. We're going to be contacting you and just seeing if there's any other ways that we can help. I also went through and looked at every one of those schedules. If you are chronically absent or habitually truant, and I see that you're in a very challenging class with maybe an instructor that isn't a big fan of a lot of leeway, I probably popped you right out of that class, and I put you to start with someone who might be a little bit more motivating to get you there. That's just the kindest way I can say that. So I did that for students. I have other students that are going to need a lot more support, so they might be placed they're a little bit closer to our social workers because they're just going to need that. So I just looked at all of their schedules, looked at that data, attached people to that. We're going to be meeting every 3 weeks. We have a care. Doesn't matter why we're seeing you, whether it's a student in transition or academic problems or mental health supports or whatever it is. We're trying to identify everybody and get those supports wrapped around them early so that we really can start focusing on academics. The speaker that Mr. Spencer was talking about really talked to us a lot about Maslow. If you've been through all that, you understand, there's certain needs that have to be met before learning ever becomes a priority to you.
And so we're just trying to identify those students early, reach out, get them lifted up the best that we can, right? We don't have all the supports and resources and money and all of that, but we have enough to help and identify and see if we can build them into a place where learning becomes a priority when they walk in the door.
Thank you for that and for elaborating on what's happening with those kids. It was like, well, we identified them, but what now?
Sure.
So thank you for that. And then my next question was regarding like the embedding of the ACT aligned practices into the daily core instruction. How, with the new curriculum, and then this is new to the district and we're just getting started with it, is any of that just like inherently in the new curriculum that you're finding, or is this going to be just more stuff that we're having to do, like professional development with the teachers to get there?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. So there are pieces in there. You know, that the challenge when you purchase a resource like that, they may say, well, we cover this standard or this level of ACT. We don't really know unless we do the crosswalk. So the teacher has to go in, look at that. How many times is this standard covered? Is it just on one page or one lesson in this guide, or is it multiple? So they're going to be, I don't want to say forced, but that's really the nature of teaching. You have to go in, look at this. Does this address what we are trying to accomplish? If not, then they backfill that. So people will need support doing that. The great thing about the high school, there's some expert teachers in that building that have a lot of knowledge about this assessment and others. And so they're already breaking through that. English assessment is vocabulary acquisition, it's critical thinking, it's data analysis on graphs and things of that nature. So high school, that's where their area of strength is. They're not great at teaching kids how to read. So there's the challenge. So you got a kid here, this is where the assessment expectation is. How do we close that gap? So there are many layers. So when I say ACT prep, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting an excerpt from an ACT practice test right today. You don't even have the vocabulary acquisition to get there. So they're embedding all of these different layers throughout their lesson, throughout the year, to be able to do this piece. Not to say that we won't do a bell ringer of, here's what you might see on the ACT. Let's work it out together. Let's collaborate. Let's figure this out. Something very quick, but what that does is build that skill and that muscle memory for a student to be able to be prepped and ready to go when that thing comes across their table. But that is the challenge. That's where we're at. If you can think about the high school, I think what Ms. Strasden did, identifying those students, I don't think that necessarily was an anomaly. I mean, that could happen every year. We just didn't have the data. So when you think about that, 100 students or a third of your population or more, after 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior level kids, that's a lot of students that are way behind. So high school is trying to adapt and figure out a way to address that need and not really being trained in that area. Not a reading teacher, not a writing teacher. However, the example that I gave, or I listened to our team today talk about where the social studies and the English teachers have already collaborated after the second or third day. We know our students struggle with this concept in writing. That person said, great, I will implement that into my class and support you. So that double, triple where you're getting that multiple times, that is going to make an impact on student learning.
I really appreciate that explanation, and if you wouldn't mind, I have two more really brief questions. One of them is, you know, you did mention like the historical preparation for the ACT, like doing those after-school sessions, optional tutoring, just different things like that. And yes, it only reaches a fraction of students, and I would argue that it's definitely reaching a fraction of students that are more serious about taking it for personal reasons. But are we still going to continue those practices? Because that wasn't necessarily clear. Or are we going to just do away with those?
No, we'll continue the initiatives that we had already started. I don't know exactly what they'll look like, but they'll be very similar. Those sessions were, hey, if you want to come join us, which made it great, because like you said, you had kids that they said, I want that extra support. I think the revision to that will be that we're going to identify as best we can very, very specific skill sets or practices that will help support them be successful on that assessment. That's something that we didn't do. We were just using some of the released items. Well, based on our student feedback, those released items had nothing to do with the test. So that's our challenge. We have to figure out what those are and then put them in an environment where those kids can keep that up.
Great. And then my last one was with your administrative leadership redesign, that you are stating that you're going to have 2 of your highly qualified assistant principals transition from their administrative roles to serve as instructional leaders and classroom coaches, like full-time. And also, when is this happening? Is that for this year, or?
Yes, it's happening.
Okay. So those 2 of your assistant principals are moving into more of that, like, classroom coaching and professional development, supporting the teachers with this?
So a couple things that happen. So right now, all 4 of us, every morning, we do a walkthrough, or sometime during the day. So we've been, there's areas that we are assigned to. We go visit those teachers just to check in. But this is going to be much more comprehensive. They're going to be very deliberate on where they're at. So based on need, those 2 will be in there, focus on core content. Part of that practice before school started, we haven't completed it, but we set schedules for all of our teachers to meet with us, people that evaluate them. And the question was, well, what do you teach? Why do you teach it? How do you teach it? Identify these 43 attributes of teaching. So it was really setting the stage for a staff member to come with their lessons, their units, their scales, and to discuss how they're going to make this achievement that we've set as a goal. That impact was huge. I would recommend every school doing that. It was, the teachers enjoyed that opportunity. That's where they identified their goals. And I think we set the table for, like, this is what we're going to do this year. And that's going to help our coaches, right? Because they're now going to have these goals. They've been able to listen to the staff, talk about, here's where I'm at, here's things that I might need support with. So now they're developing this coaching framework. It's not written out, but it will be. Everything that we do at the high school, we decided as a team is going to be written in verbal message. So it will be documented every step of the way. We felt like that was going to have a very positive impact for consistency and delivery.
Thanks so much for everyone's work on this plan. It looks great. I'm excited to see what happens.
So I'm grateful that Ms. Strasden took the initiative to take a deep dive into the data and really look at the kids that were at high risk. And hopefully in the coming years, that 100 students dwindles down every year. But I feel like there's an elephant in the room and kind of shone a light in a corner that maybe we have a systemic issue that allowed these kids to fall into these cracks. So what are we doing as a district to catch them or even earlier before they're incoming freshmen?
I can give you an answer with that too as well. We just started using data dashboard that the administrators have access to now that Catherine's been working on last year. We've got it up and running now. It takes this data and puts it in there and makes it available much sooner. We have some things in Infinite Campus, but they don't. Harder to use, and it's not very reliable. Although it is what they use to fund us for at-risk students, but it's not. So within the Rethink platform, we have a data dashboard that is just being rolled out now. Administrators are trained in it. That all that information that Dean Strasden was talking about is now available for those students within that. And we're still refining that because it's new on there, but it's there so you can get that, you can filter it, you can narrow right down to the kids and see the things. And that's all the way through the entire system. So that's something that we've got in now, because it's trying to get all that data together in one spot with easy and convenient access, like instant access to the data. It's not pulling spreadsheets together and looking at it. It's pulling it up here on the dashboard. It's very user-friendly, interactive, and bring it in there. And that will help. And within that, some of the plans, like that we're talking about, what do we do with the kids, some of the intervention plans and things, they will be put right into that. And then there's ways to, you set up the measurement and ways to track the progress and work through this with the students. So it's not just, here's struggling student, what are you going to do? No, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we do it, and here's how we track it and check the data to see if we're making a difference. So that's one thing that we have that we're rolling out right now.
So you're saying that this information's available already for each person, so we just need to instruct someone at each school to sort the data like Ms. Strasden did.
But the administrators have it. It's being rolled out as people are being trained into others. I'm gonna do that. And with this too, we're still working out some of the things in it. We're working with Infinite Campus still. The last remaining component is the minors, getting the minors to go back and forth. The majors do, but the minors, working on that. And that's the last remaining component that we're trying to get to work correctly in it. The other information's there, all the attendance, all that stuff, it's there. And so, and the longer students with us, the more information we have, so the more you can see. But it will be useful, especially targeting a lot of students. We know the attendance factor, and this will be a fast way to identify it. We can filter it right away and do that. So they do have that, and it's being rolled out in a process to try not overwhelm everybody, but have them have that available to them.
I feel another component to that is, like you said, that you're back to school with all the teachers is building those relationships with your students. You know, the teacher's the first defense on this, instead of just relying on a program to pop up a red flag, hey, look at this kid. And having those relationships between the teachers and their administrators that they can support this kid through their education.
That would be a great use of that, would be administrators noticing this, and then doing what the high school did with what they did with the data, and going out, getting with the teachers involved. Not just that me as an administrator, I'm going to go see what I can do to help this child, because I'm one person, I'm not going to do it, but it's the people that interact with that child every day. That's where the difference is made. So it's using that information to get that process in place and keep that going, and to have that follow through, and that follow through with it. It's that follow through, that ongoing checking and support that's really important. We know one time doesn't change much. That ongoing follow through and that relationship that's built with the students. Absolutely.
I'm grateful that we have one now. We haven't had somebody consistent who has been able to work in Infinite Campus, so I think this is proving to be valuable because this has been a long-term habit, unfortunately, for the district. We talk about data all of the time, but the data we've been using has been superficial, cursory, or anecdotal, which really has not been data that's well suited for good data-driven decisions. And so I appreciate the work that's been done to help make decisions that are clearly laid out and based on that deeper, more critical data. And I hope that becomes the habit as opposed to what we continue. And I've sat here long enough, I've heard these conversations so many times, and there's been no changes because we continue to use superficial data, and then the decisions that are being made are not effective enough. So when I'm looking at your highly responsive schools, reliability, reliability schools. And you have the 3 levels. Where would you say you are? Like, are you even at level 1, or are you like 0.5, 0.1?
So, and that's something that I want to bring our team back to talk about. The framework, it has 5 levels, and the levels are interdependent on each other. So it's not really am I a level 1. Although the high school is working on all levels, 1 through 4. We're not reliable in all aspects of that. And reliability means in this practice, do I say, well, I'll work on that next year, or do I say, we've got a problem, we need to address it, we convene, we revise our plan, and we move forward. So that's our process, and our team this summer took every single attribute from arrival to dismissal, instruction, passing period, lunch. I mean, we went through this and we built indicator, a leading and lagging indicator for each of those that has an objective, a process, a reason why, and a practice. That is what we're implementing at the high school. So staff will begin to be able to see what that looks like. We already began with the easy stuff, the cell phone, dress code, tardies, absenteeism, etc. Day 3, we're seeing great results. It is amazing. A bathroom that was full of kids the last 3 years had nobody in it during passing period. Why? Because the staff members say, if you want to use the bathroom, you leave your cell phone with me. The other reason is staff are talking to students about the expectations. It's consistent across the board. We're saying the same thing. Those practices are going to help us achieve this reliability status. What you're talking about deserves some time just in itself, so you get a better understanding of what we're talking about, and I think you'll be very excited.
So I'm gonna, level 3 is interesting to me, because it talks about aligned curriculum. Again, I've been here a while. The language I really want to use, I won't. But every darn year, we talk about aligned curriculum. And it's been a decade at the high school. A decade. So you got 3.5 years before you stop hearing me talk about it, but I sure hope it's 3.5 years where the high school tell me that we are not there. We are 95% there. And I understand aligned curriculum isn't the be-all, end-all, but as you referenced already, it's all of these other things to get to that point that makes a big difference in the instruction of the students.
So I can, in that piece, I'm not sure why I put that in there, but alignment of curriculum, I mean a lot of things. So curriculum to me are essential standards, like these are absolutely required for a student in Algebra 1. Maybe there's 12 of them, and all the assessments that are built teach and assess that. That's an alignment of curriculum. Now, depending on the person that's coming into my room, because all kids every year are not in the same place all the time. So we do have to revise and adjust those essentials all the time based on the needs of the kids that come in there. That alignment piece, what we didn't do. So I will say at the high school, all our core, but Linda was there. So all of our courses have proficiency scales, which meant they went through and said, these are the essentials that have to be taught. Here's the assessment, and they build out a proficiency scale that they could use to teach and assess those standards. What we haven't done at the level that we need to do is align that content and additionally ACT skill-based items. So those are the things that I think I was reflecting in that.
So the HRS level 3 with the aligned curriculum has more to do with aligning it with ACT. So how confident are you then that you have, at least in the core subjects, aligned curriculum?
I feel very confident, yep. And I can tell you based on the preliminary meetings, because the staff, they're required to come meet with us and bring their, what do you teach? Well, I teach Algebra 1. Great, let me see your essentials, let me see your skills, let's look at your assessments, how does all that line out? That is in place, that's happening. So I have no doubt that you don't have to wait 3.5 years.
Okay, thanks.
And I think one thing really important to think about on that too, and the alignment and everything, it's all very important, but it boils down to you make those adjustments and you teach it. You teach the curriculum, you teach the stuff there. You go through that, and that's with our vertical alignment. It should all be building upon each other, but you have to teach it. And as we alluded to earlier, and everyone's been made aware, the policy that's on there, that curriculum is expected to be taught. There's a time that it has to be taught. You can variance and stuff, but it has to be taught, and that's the key is that we do that, because that's where we're building that base. That base comes up, that everything from year to year. That's what's just so critical, because you can't start over every year. That language has to go on there to develop, so they have those skills. They should know when they get through middle school, there's a certain set of skills that they come in. That's what the key is, though, and that's what we're trying to focus really hard on, is that it's taught. It's consistently taught, and the expectations are there, and that language goes from school to school to school to school all the way through the system, and our profile of learner is connected to that all the way through the system, so that we see that and there's consistency with those kids, so that the learning, we maximize that learning potential. I think that's what you're talking about, Trustee Whitaker, that we're talking about that, but we don't see that result yet, and that's what we're working on, and that's what has to happen, and that's with the policy changes and that's we're responsible to make that happen.
Else?
I just want. I think it's very important to know that, like I said before, middle school team, we've been able to get to know them different level than I have since I've been here. And I feel super confident that our teams are going to be able to plan, communicate, and build this thing out. So although we identified students that came from middle school, that isn't because of this team. That's just the way education is. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it wasn't a kind of ding the middle school for any reason.
Sticking with the middle school, you talk about curriculum alignment. You mentioned you guys are using McGraw-Hill now, and they're using iReady. Is there, like, what's the correlation to that, or how is that going to affect what you're doing versus what they're doing?
I can answer that. So all the curriculum are aligned to the standards, and even though they're using a different set, iReady doesn't go above 8th grade. So you can't maintain it, but it has a lot of tools and things that are very good. They're teaching through the standards. And McGraw-Hill is that same way, so the standards are for each class, they have that. So while there may be a few things in language that we have to learn and look and crosswalk that and see what we have to make sure that we've taught with that, if we're teaching correctly or teaching with fidelity, iReady, it should lead very well into McGraw-Hill. And that was one of the things I know that was talked about, they looked at when they were selecting the curriculum. And one thing that, too, that I know the teachers there, and I think Trustee Guerrero, one of the questions you had just reminded me of that last week, they've got the new curriculum there. Former Assistant Superintendent Cooper, she was involved with the purchasing and that process of selecting that. And teachers got there and like something wasn't there. So Mike and I, Mike especially, got a lot of knowledge real fast on what they felt was missing, and it was those extra parts where they have that data and they have the scales and stuff to do that they thought was missing. It turns out it's all there, so we have it going. But they were very passionate about it. It's going to be there. So it's going to be there. But they're like, they know what they wanted and what was necessary for them to be successful with it, and so that's getting fixed. But it was their conviction, like, this is what we have, this is what we want. We need that, see this, so that they can monitor the students and see the skills they want in a different way than just having standard.
I want to thank you guys for a great conversation. Impressive to listen to. I don't see that there's an action on this question. Anybody else have anything else? Are we good? Thank you guys so much. We've been 2 hours, 20 minutes. Let's take 5 so we can make sure our knees still work. Okay, this meeting is back in session. We are moving on to D. For discussion and possible action, presentation and discussion regarding zero tolerance for violence and consideration of the role of partnerships with law enforcement. Presenter Darrell Parsons, Superintendent.
All right, thank you, President Malkovich. So this item is on there at the request of trustees, a board member request to talk about our commitment with law enforcement. So it started with Lyon County released a couple years ago a statement from the sheriff and the superintendent about the zero tolerance, and it says in it, and I didn't include in board book because I just want to talk about kind of the main idea of it. So they talked about, it says, in response to the recent increase of reports of violence and weapons at schools nationwide, not necessarily for them, but nationwide, Lyon County Sheriff's Office, in conjunction with the Lyon County School District, implemented a zero tolerance stance. So they said effective immediately, all Sheriff's Office personnel responding to incidents of violence, weapons, or allegations of any such activity at Lyon County School District schools, events, properties, or related areas will conduct proactive criminal investigations and pursue criminal charges to the fullest extent of the law. So, and then they go on with more details and linking things to the NRS and the different policies and things in Lyon County that happen. So what I've been doing, and Mike's been doing some of this with me as well, we have met with our new police chief, Chief Babiars, with the Fallon's Police Department. We've had a meeting with the district attorney's office, the district attorney and with his deputies. I've talked to the sheriff. I've talked to juvenile probation. We'll be having a meeting with them soon. But we are trying to prepare something that fits us about this as well. And our law enforcement, because we mainly get sheriffs sometimes, but we mainly have Fallon Police because of our location within the city limits. But their expectation is that when there are things that are criminal in nature, with any of these things to do with the violence, that they will process, they will cite them, arrest if necessary, and that will be sent to the district attorney's office, and they will do what they need to there. Our conversation with in the district attorney's office was that one thing that they said, the district attorney said, was make sure that you don't wait too long, that you give us enough information. And we talked on more subjects than just the zero tolerance for violence and things. We talked also about attendance issues and things that they're very willing to try and help with and do that. So when things happen in our schools, our principals will be they take the necessary action, and we have a school resource officer back in the schools. Officer Ugalde is with us this year, and we should have a second resource officer as soon as they can, depending upon a few factors, but hopefully the latest should be by Christmas, but then we'll have two. So Sam right now is spending his time between the middle school and high school, and there's no schedule because we don't want it to be predictable when he'll be around, but he's spending the time where necessary. And I think they've already been of some assistance on a couple of matters, and so, but they will, and the information will be taken down, will be sent over and go to the district attorney's office, and they look for their avenues, and there are avenues they try to put kids, sometimes they'll go on diversion and different things and stuff, so not everything will end up in court right away, but the more that we provide when things happen, the more they'll be able to do stuff. So they are committed to supporting us in this, and as Chief Babiar said, that's what they're willing to do that. When we do the things and we call them on it, it's not going to be we called, we responded, we're good. They're gonna take care of that action. So we are working on a statement that's joint between not just us and the police, but between all those involved in the entire process, and what we want to do. And I'm hopeful. I was hoping to get it done for now, but getting a lot of parts together with everybody involved and getting all the time with it. So I'm hopeful that by the next meeting we're able to come back with that and bring something that the board can agree to, that we can send out, and that will show our support for this, and you'd like to understand that those things that deal with violence, drug matters, or anything like that that are illegal. There are consequences to it that extend beyond just the discipline that we provide in the school. So that's where we're at with it. On that, it's nobody has been like a lack of support for wanting to support the schools to help with issues that are happening. But it's also on our schools that we investigate these things as the best that we can to make sure that we're calling them for the situations that are necessary. You know, in middle school, that's a rough age, and I know in the past sometimes there have been some things like, well, they're calling the police too much, but we can call them as much as they want. They're committed to that, and they know, because we do want to have safe things going on, and we want to have our schools still safe. I am very happy, though, with the middle school and the high school, how things have started out on some of those issues that they are doing. And they're very fast now reacting with things and getting right on top of stuff so that we can start the school year out with some high expectations. So with that's where I'm at with this. And so this is the opportunity, if you have items that you'd like to put up for consideration on this topic, your thoughts on it, help kind of guide me as we pursue into the next level with this and where we might head.
Thanks for that update. I had a question and then kind of a comment or suggestion. Last year, we were working on a partnership with the county JPO where we were going to use some of the funds that we had for like Safe School Professional, whatever, and then partially fund a position with juvenile probation that was going to help us with like truancies and other issues. What happened with all of that?
They have that position. They were still through the training part, and following up more with juvenile probation. I meet with them is one of the things that we talked about that's on our agenda with that.
And generally, as you've been meeting with like the DA and the SO, PD, JPO, all that, are you finding that they're all generally supportive of the school district's efforts to kind of come together on this?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. And then if we're getting a second resource officer, is your plan to have them at the middle school where we have more significant behavioral issues than anywhere else?
Yes, so currently, unless we see that we need to do it otherwise, what we've done in the past, we've had one mainly based out of the high school and one mainly based out of the middle school. Then they are able to support the other schools as needed, and depending upon which one, or they'll both be at a school if necessary. But that's what the plan would be. So both schools will have been directed to have a location for the resource officer.
Okay.
An office or place. I can't remember, the middle school is going to be they're working on something because they've changed some of their offices, and the high school has too, where the resource officer used to be now the athletic director's office, but there's another office that will be the resource officer's place. So they have a home at both schools where their stuff will be and their computer access, because they have access to our systems and to our surveillance and all that.
Okay. And then my comment and area of the concern or seeking consideration to kind of add this in would be regarding vaping and or drug use issues. So, and Joe could maybe help refresh my memory, but it was somewhere in the realm of like 18 months to 2 years ago. He and I were in a virtual training, and it was Lyon County that had this policy that was fairly new, and the different districts were sharing some things that had been really effective. And please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on this. But my memory was that Lyon County had instituted this policy about vaping, and where they partnered with, again, law enforcement, and there was just like no tolerance for it, and it was just like an immediate call to law enforcement, and then there was a ticket or a fine given by law enforcement. It was sent to the parents of the minor, and they said that it cleaned up their problem real fast. Was that your memory? It was something along those lines.
My understanding that they're basically written immediately a a civil penalty that they go to court and pay.
Right. Kind of like a traffic violation type thing. And, I mean, vaping, I mean, you can talk to any student at the middle school and the high school, and, you know, they all know, kids vape in class, they pull their sleeve over their hand, they have all their little tricks, and they go to the bathroom and vape, whatever. It continues to be an issue, and I'm just wondering if that can be folded into those conversations about gaining some of the law enforcement community support around that in addition to weapons and violence.
Will be discussed.
Thank you for bringing that up, Julie. That was also one of my recommendations.
And I will add that I know that we monitor things, and I know that I can safely say that there's a zero tolerance for that going on right now, because it's been addressed already in our schools, you know, after the third day, has been addressed and working with. So, yeah, it is an issue, and it's not good, right? And that one of the harder things with the vaping is too, vaping itself in general, you know, we know and we see the data and we know that it's bad for you, but the other thing with it is we don't know what's in the vape, and there could be all kinds of things, and one of the things that when we were meeting with the district attorney's office, one of the things that they said too is they want to make sure that our staff learn, and we'll have this in training all our staff, that if there are items, things like that, and staff say that they're very careful, and especially with touching them and stuff, and that's what law enforcement's for, is come in and do that, because with the drugs and things today, and specifically one of the things was about fentanyl, even just a flake on something could cause somebody to die with that, because the strengths of them are so bad now. They were very concerned about those kinds of items that are being within our streets, and you know, I don't know so much within our community, but hitting, and we read about in the news and stuff because of the strengths. That's one thing they said, you got to get your staff to understand that's law enforcement's job. So if there's an item, law enforcement comes to get it, you don't want to even.
That's where being timely is also very important, because as our maintenance know, a lot of vapes end up in the toilets and places where they shouldn't go, because the kids know someone's on their tail.
Yep. And that's what, and that's where it's really nice to have, and will be really nice when we have the resource officers right back in the schools. You know, law enforcement did great. If we need them, they would be there really fast, but having them on site is faster.
I'm just wondering, kind of back to that juvenile probation position that we are funding, partially funding. I haven't seen anything lately about the library, because it seems like maybe that person, that officer, is over there supervising that parking lot. Is that correct?
They were, but that kind of, and that was one of the things we specifically talked about, and that seems to have kind of corrected.
Okay. So my follow-up question to that then is, do we know about how many hours they're spending, that specific position is spending within our school district, like within our schools? Are they coming here at all?
I don't have that information for this year yet. That'll be worked on, and they will be, because they're going to be coming in. They're going to be doing work with students in a proactive approach to try and stop things before things happen.
So this first week of school, have we seen that person at all?
I haven't, no. They may have been here with probation stuff, but I haven't had that conversation yet during this first week.
Just wanted to add one other thing when it comes to things like the violence, fighting, whatever. We know there's issues with kids putting things up on social media, like videoing fights, things like that, and then, you know, vaping and or drug use. At the national conference this last handful of months ago, one of the superintendents, after a breakout session, there were several of us that were chatting, and he was talking about at their high school and middle school, like the importance of student voice, and some student groups that the superintendent, or I'm sorry, that the principal would meet with, because the insight that was coming from the students on ways to more effectively sort of communicate with the kids about some of these issues and how they saw it best to kind of handle or communicate that with the other students that in a more effective manner that would potentially reach them better, was super effective and useful in their schools. And, you know, I don't know as far as like if the principals at the middle school and the high school are presently meeting with like student groups on a regular basis to sort of get their perspectives on that, but that might also be something of use, just getting the student perspective on like, hey, what's more effective? Like they used vaping as an example, and they had some of the kids help with the initiatives that they felt like would reach the students better about why not to vape and things. So, you know, it's always worth seeing what our students have to say too.
Oh, definitely, and I think that they probably do. I know that we've had conversations in the past, and I know with both and Dr. Peretta as the vice principal, the information they have from students. And an example of that is when I was senior students in high school, we had a dress code issue going on, and there were a group of students who wore Marilyn Monroe shirts at the time. They were kind of, but they were using them to indicate gang status and stuff. And they were based on Marilyn Monroe. They were kind of, yeah, kind of thing. And so the leader, kind of, the kid I knew, and so I had met with him quite a few times, and we talked about him and I said, here's the issue. I said, here's what's happening. People are freaking out because you're doing this, and this is what's happening. He goes, well, they're just shirts they're seen everywhere. I said, yeah, but doing this, and they all have weapons on them. So we came up with what would it take, and we decided the shirts were okay, but we decided what parts of the shirts weren't okay, or what versions of them weren't okay. And we had an immediate change because the student was involved. And then, did they still wear those shirts? Yeah. They didn't wear them as much, and they didn't all wear them all the time because that's one of the things we talked about. And there were no weapons or other inappropriate things on some of them. So they had probably, I don't know, they had a ton of them. So that made a change, and it was something that we could work with, but that communicated to them, and that didn't require a lot of kids getting in trouble and spending time in ISS and stuff, or wearing the green overalls and stuff that we had. But you're right, those kind of things can make a difference and make an impact without make an impact through positive relationships rather than consequences. It can you eliminate the need for the consequence.
I have a few comments, and just to kind of fill in the board, during our last discipline and attendance committee, there was a lot of spirited discussion on discipline and attendance, obviously. And it was a good discussion, it was a good meeting, and I walked away from there, and I just felt like there was this unspoken desire by the majority of the people in the meeting that they wanted more. They want, what's our next step? Where are we going with this conversation? And we didn't have that piece that day. To kind of tie all this in, I was watching a video about a site administrator talking about behaviors at his site, and he mentioned that the schools get the behaviors they tolerate. That was really impactful to me, and I think, unfortunately, we're at that space where we need a zero tolerance policy to set the precedent. This is unacceptable on our school grounds. It will not be tolerated. And in my mind, I feel that students, once this gets implemented, that they'll know there's real life consequences. If I punch this kid in the hallway, I'm going to get a $5,000 fine. Bring my THC vape to school, I'm going to get a $5,000 fine. And that rolls into them knowing not to do that and curb that behavior. And as we all have seen, we're sent videos of fight clubs being organized in our school hallways and bathrooms, and it's heartbreaking, and I hate that we're in that spot that we have to put the hammer down, but we definitely need the zero tolerance policy, and I'm super happy that all the entities involved are cooperative and kind of on the same page moving forward with this. That I would, if it's appropriate, I would like to hear from site administrators that are here, because this is going to directly affect them and, you know, their opinions.
And one thing too, I'd like to add to that too, is that in all of the discussions, it has also gone to not just about that consequence, but that they're looking for ways to support or help with changing the behavior on a permanent basis. So the consequence stops or directs, but there's often lots of conditions to why that behavior is happening and stuff. Sometimes it's outside of the student's control, or some influence factors, not necessarily outside of control, but heavily a big factor. And all the way through law enforcement has been, okay, this, but then what is that other part of support? And that's that part too, like, that we have to do, and that's what we do with our teams, and the high school is talking about their team that meets every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, every 3 weeks, their care team and stuff, those things like that, to provide that and help to make that permanent change in behavior, rather than getting better at hidden behavior, but the permanent change in behavior in a positive manner.
And don't get me wrong, that is definitely an important part of the process of that wraparound service for the student, and that is something the district can provide. We're getting into discussions, consequences that the district can't provide, and that's where we need to move.
And they were very happy to have that, with that additional component, that we're looking at the whole big picture with them, because they're a part of that too. And that was really good. But I know we have a couple here. And I have had conversations with the current superintendent, Lyon County, former superintendent, who was superintendent when this happened, and talked about some of their experiences and things, and they've seen some successes with it. There's some other things they've learned from it, that on how some things are working and stuff. So we're trying to gather as much information as we can. I know Mike, he was in Lyon County, but he's in an elementary school, and that's not impacted as much because of the age of the kids and younger. But I think he'd mentioned that how he felt with it and some impacts. And from the high school, middle school, if there's some things you thought you have about it, Trustee McFadden, if you have any opinions you want to share on it. You know, Dean Strasden, got to use that. Dean Strasden worked in Lyon County as well at a middle school, right, or a upper elementary.
Worked with fifth and sixth graders in Lyon County, and shockingly, they require some of this thing that we're talking about right here. But I just want to say that I was at the meeting with Trustee McFadden and appreciated the agenda and the discussion and whatever, and it kind of did the same thing at that meeting, where I think it's part of behavior and discipline and consequence and matrices and NRS and all of the things. I think it's part of it to talk about teaching the correct behavior and looking at the antecedent and talking about positive reinforcement. I think that's all part of it. But I think specifically what we're talking about, when we're talking about, in my mind, this relationship with this governing board having a relationship with other governing boards, especially law enforcement on the municipal and the county level, is that when a citation gets ordered or issued, or when something happens at our site that is severe, the type of thing that we're talking about, it is happening, right? We can end, and in situations we can expel, and in things like that, but we're still not getting that partnership that I think people need to feel a little bit more impact from law enforcement when it comes to a substantial fine or community service or both or whatever, because it's kind of like it fizzles right at the suspension, right? We are, if it involves a kid with an IEP, we're following the steps. We're talking to, case managers. We're doing what we're supposed to do. You guys see discipline matrices. We follow those. But we're talking about specific instances that are just past that. And those are there are times where those are increasing, and we're not seeing anything much past that. So citations are being issued, but I think what we're asking, I'll just say for myself, and when I'm talking to other parents and things of that nature, when there's a relationship between this governing board and law enforcement is acting for a bigger impact when it comes to a fine and the community service and the impact on the entire, quite honestly, the family. I mean, I'm happy to talk about positive reinforcement and all that stuff all day, but that's not really, when we're talking about attendance and discipline, I'm not sure, I think that's the missing piece that you're referring to. And I think that's way out of administrators' hands. That's you. That's where I'm thinking.
But wouldn't it be beneficial to have another attendance and discipline committee meeting and get everybody in the same room?
I would almost like to see to get this piece evolved to the point of implementation if the board choosing to pursue it, but I would like to have that meeting. That way we can have all those people sitting in the same room to discuss it. It was awesome to see all those partners in that room. And like I said, there was a lot of valuable conversation that happened.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Dina Peretta. I'm the principal at CCMS, and we use this today. We had an incident in our school where, after I talked to our students about no tolerance for fights, we had a fight at school. We called our SRO, and he helped us write the citations for the students. And we gave it to the parents, came down, had that parent communication with them, letting them know, too, that there was no tolerance for fighting at our school. I was not going to allow that, as it has happened in the past, and making sure that students knew that we were going to follow through. So, fortunately, that happened, but they did see the follow-through effect of it. And I agree that things that we're putting into place now, the bathrooms, the cell phones, are helping, and it's increasing abilities for students to group up and make plans for fighting at lunch and after school and off campus, which they were doing quite frequently last year. So I appreciate the support in this and that we're looking at this so that there is no tolerance for these things, fighting, vaping, drugs on our premises. We want our students to be safe every day and know that they're safe and can go to the bathrooms and can go to lunch and not worry about someone trying to pick a fight with them. Something I would like the board to also consider is when students are videoing these fights and activities, that this is also something that is into this so that it can have a stronger consequence than what we currently have.
And one thing I'll add with that remind me too is that we do have in place, and I sent a reminder today that within Infinite Campus now, when a behavior incident is put in there, if a citation is issued, is referred to law enforcement for a citation, there's something that they put a resolution to that on there. When an incident occurs, more than one resolution can be put on there. So this is data that we're going to be tracking, and reportable data. So there's two resolutions. When there's one, if a citation is written and it's referred to law enforcement for citation, they do one. There's another one where if a student is arrested. So we'll have that data tracked very closely as well for every incident that involves law enforcement. And so, and we're monitoring that. I was in there monitoring that today. So, because we want to know and see the impact on what we're doing. Stuff is happening.
In your communication with the sheriff's office, do you guys have any communication about bringing the drug dog to our campus occasionally, or? I didn't in there, but we're going to, because I just think that we did it when I was at the high school, and it was effective. It was effective. I remember the one day we did it, the dogs didn't find anything. As a result of the dogs being there, we found stuff. People reported or did stupid things like throw it in the trash can, and others saw. So I mean, but the dogs didn't actually catch it. They have other times, but that one day I remember they didn't actually hit on something, but its behavior changed, and we were able to identify some and found some that we didn't need the dogs to find.
So what the board is looking at is a clear policy about zero tolerance with stricter consequences. But I'm curious how that relates to calling law enforcement in, because we can't tell them to give them more costly citations for community service. So how does that work handled?
I think that's part of this multi-agency conversation that's happening as it rolls out, and making sure everyone is on board, on the same page, and we know what to expect from law enforcement, the JPO, they know what we're expecting, and there's no question between the multi-agency cooperation is the goal here.
Okay. But what you're saying is, though, before the next time you meet, they want, all of the other agencies are expecting the district to take the first step?
My understanding is Daryl's working on a resolution with all the agencies.
And working something with everyone.
So it's going to be a community-wide, multi-agency resolution saying, this is where Churchill County stands.
Because you're right, we can do what we can do, and then we can ask for other agencies or some things that are out of our control, they would have to agree to, yeah, this is what we're doing. And we can't control that, so we're working with them to try and establish what that would be, so that there is an expectation. So then we know as well, as when we're working with situations, we want to be able to say, this is what's going to happen. Because if we say, this is what might happen, I mean, this is what's going to happen, is a bigger impact, and
This has to happen soon. I mean, I'm going back to my principal days. It should have happened 3 days ago. I mean, I'm doing the math here. It's pretty hard to go backwards. So, hey, we got to come up with something fairly quick here. Road has to be hit running. I don't think we have the month thinking we have.
Well, I think that by coming up with this plan with all the parties involved really helps, because if we can implement, we can set the policy like Catherine said, but if the law enforcement isn't forcing those people to make the payment, if they're not forcing them to go and do the community service, talking to those parents, making those parents make the children do what they're supposed to do, then the policy stops right here just the same.
Yeah.
So we have to have all of them on board to say, you're going to do it.
Yeah, and so that's what I appreciate. I was concerned, well, yeah, we can create policy, but we're hoping then that the law enforcement will follow suit. And I know you've developed good relationships with law enforcement agencies, but I for the resolution style, or the resolution instead of a policy.
Right,
That
which
reason,
even
and that's what we're working with.
ticket, now we're looking into those, because if the judge isn't enforcing that, then it's, again, dies. They can write tickets all day long, but if the judge isn't enforcing that to happen when it doesn't get paid or doesn't get completed, then you're at another roadblock. So,
And I don't see this so much as changing our district policy. It's more of a plea for help. The other agencies, hey, we're willing to partner with you. Will you partner with us and help us make this happen?
So Greg, you're saying timeline, you think it needs to happen as soon as possible. What would it take to do that?
I mean, I'm saying it should have happened 3 days ago, minimum, but
Well,
we can't do that now, so we have to move forward with.
I mean, realistically.
I don't think we can wait to come to another board meeting. If you want, this should be happening.
do we need a special board meeting? Do we need a special policy committee meeting? What do we need to do to make this happen?
But it depends on two things. If the board wants to adopt a resolution and approve it, it requires a board meeting.
And if
It can also represent the district and do something with that too, if we can get something sooner.
Char-
Just has to be direction to make this happen as possible.
I would say so.
Charlotte, does a resolution require 2 readings, like a policy? Okay, so that saves, that's nice. That's helpful that way. If we have a special meeting, it can be
So,
approved
So
and
it's-
that's it.
This agenda item does have a possible action component to it, so I think if the board feels as a whole, we can't give Daryl the direction to represent the district in this resolution.
so is it possible, Charla, that there could be, the board, because it is a possible action, they could make a resolution that goes something along the lines of, the board authorizes the superintendent to, develop a resolution or an agreement with, outside agencies regarding, zero tolerance and the role or the relationship with law enforcement, or regarding zero tolerance, and that can be, signed by the trustees, or does it have to come back to the trustees to review it before they could sign it?
I mean, typically what, like I've seen, just like the president of the board is the signer on,
Or it could be
on
just the
these
president of the board.
things. You know, but that, like, doesn't, I mean, I don't think that, I don't know, I guess that's a Charlotte thing, if we would have to wait or not.
Couldn't quite hear what you said.
Resolutions that have ever been passed in at least local government here have always been signed by, like, the chair of the board, not like, you know, the designee, not like, in this case, the superintendent or county manager. So it's always been like the chair, or in our case, the president. And so is there a way that we can make a motion to, like, have Harold be the signer on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, if I were you, I would consider taking action to direct the superintendent to move forward as consistent with the discussion tonight. Has been pretty clear. And that way he has full authority, and, you know, when he's working with the other agencies, they might have a format that they want. It could even be an MOU. To me, I've never seen a resolution signed by multiple agencies. That seems, I mean, maybe that format would work, but if you authorize Daryl to take action consistent with your discussion tonight, I think that gives him full, ability to get it done quickly and in whatever format the other agencies might feel is appropriate for them. That's one possibility.
Yeah, that's true, because in this case, they may opt to do an MOU, especially if you're getting the city of Fallon and Churchill both, involved. We use resolution numbers, and so if our numbering system is different, like, again, I can see issues with that, and this feels more like it would be an MOU than a resolution.
So if we did do some action like what Charlotte was saying, we would be working on it.
Got it.
If we are.
I move to approve the superintendent take action consistent with the discussion for this agenda item.
We have a motion by trustee Whitaker, second by trustee McFadden. Is there any public comment? And none, all in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, moving on to 14, policies. Board will receive information on, discuss, and may take preliminary action on the following policies. A, for discussion and possible action, policy 2121.0, superintendent's evaluation form. Are there any questions on that? Okay. For discussion only, this is actually policy 6100, not regulation 6100. Curriculum delivery of instruction. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay, C, for discussion only, regulation 6100, instructional consultation. Anybody have any? I had one on that one. I think the second, third, fourth, whatever pages still say instructional consultation at the top instead of,
Which policy was that again?
that's the instructional consultation, which is now, changed the name, I don't have it in front of me.
14.
I think it's different on
On the regulation?
I think it just needs to be changed at the top, just the title, pretty
Okay.
simple. It's regulation, so.
Do that.
You went back to the old title or something, didn't it? It's a regulation that they can look at it. Okay, so we got, for discussion only, Regulation 6101, Instructional Program and Design. Anybody have anything on that?
I do.
Okay.
Shame all our site administrators left. I really appreciate the reference to the NAC being in there, with the state requirement of no more than 25% of supplemental material. I know Darrell has really been driving this point home with his talks with staff and the teachers, and I know he is with the administrators as well. And we really need to get buy-in in the direction that, from the district, that we're using our curriculum that we bought. This is what we're using, 75%. You still have your creative freedom 25% of the time. And I just also wanted to ask how we are monitoring fidelity in the classroom of our curriculum.
So with that, that's part of the responsibility of the site administrators to do that as part of their evaluation, system with the teachers and stuff. But that we will be, having discussions and setting expectations with them on that and doing some checks ourselves as well. But that is part of our expectation that we have with them, is to, fully implement the policies and regulations in the district. This is one, and that will be one that we'll be specifically looking at, because that's been the focus of our discussion this year. Start up with in all avenues of starting school.
Any other questions or discussion on that one? Then we have for discussion only Regulation 630630.0 textbook adoption. Have anything on that? Okay, F for discussion possible action, policy 8140.0, temporary board committees. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so moving on to 15. Discussion and possible action regarding future agenda items as requested by board members, Board of Trustees, and clarification requested agenda items. Mr. McFadden.
Not at this moment.
Whitaker. Ghetto. Becky. Carol Getch. Buck. I don't have any either. Next board agenda setting meeting, agenda setting Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, 4 p.m. with Trustee Blakey. We're all good with that, right? 17, closed session for discussion and possible action. Discussion of negotiations and strategies regarding contracts, Churchill County unrepresented employees, Churchill County Administrators Association, Churchill County Education Association, Nevada Classified School Employees Association, pursuant to NRS 288.2.
I move this meeting into closed session.
All right, I have a motion. And I have a second from Trustee Whitaker. Anybody in public have any comments on this? All right, then all in favor? We are now in closed session.
Yeah, it should be right there. checked it, I viewed it.
Yeah.
Can you check, can you get them and print them? I'll share that with folks.
Perfect.
This one will be faster.
All right, should be in that here in a minute. We're gonna have to come back out. This is for
And once you start it,
Okay, we're back in open session. Number 19, additional new items. A, for discussion and possible action, report regarding the fiscal impact of the proposed changes to the 25 through 27 school year negotiated agreement between Churchill County School District and Churchill County Education Association, and action to ratify the proposed agreement. Superintendent Parsons.
thank you, President Malkovich. So you see, we posted up at the same time as the board received the financial impact analysis, which for all items is a $0 financial impact for the items negotiated.
I move to approve the negotiated agreement between Churchill County School District and the Churchill County Education Association for the 2025 through 2027 school year.
I have a motion in several seconds. We'll go with Trustee Blake, second. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? It is unanimous. Public comment. Members of the public who speak are asked to state their name for the record and will be limited to a uniform number of minutes. Board members may respond briefly to public comment but cannot deliberate on matters not listed. And is there any public comment? Seeing none, we are now adjourned.